Hello everybody, this is the Retro Bear once again, welcoming you to a brand new episode of Desert Island Games, episode number 16. Sweet 16 indeed, and hopefully this will be another cracking episode as the previous 15 have been so far. If you've never heard Desert Island Games before, please don't forget all the archived episodes are in the channel links below. 15 previous YouTubers and gamers have been on, expanding upon their gaming history and their games they want to take with them to a desert island. If you've not heard the podcast before, I ask a YouTuber to come on with the concept of being marooned on a desert island with only 6 games to keep them happy. On top of those 6 games, they can also be stranded with a game that we're now calling the Second Chance game, a game they may have played before and not had a lot of chance to finish, couldn't get on with. Here's an opportunity to play it again in full. And because we like to make things a little bit difficult and a little bit more fun at the end, we always ask them to bring along one game that they don't particularly like. For any reason, for my own amusement, really, more than anything else. And we discuss that during that. Interspersed with these games, we also talk about gaming history, how they've started getting into gaming, how they are now, what path they've taken along the way, any interesting stories that come up, and anecdotes to go along as well. So it's all a bit of fun. If you've not heard it before, so do stick with it. Those regular listeners, thank you very much indeed for coming back and listening to this latest episode. Now, I'm really pleased to say that my guest this week is another one of my fellow TNB members. And I'm pretty sure that when we trialled this on the podcast, TNB podcast, last year or 18 months ago, he may have been one of the original 3 who came on and did this. Usually when we find out we can't think of anything to do, so we just threw this concept into a hat. And we said, that's a good idea, so we did it. So I'm pretty sure he came on there. Also a YouTuber I've known for quite some time and classed as a very old friend. So it's great to have him on here and talk to him. I am, of course, talking about PeteFighter II. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Russ. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad.
You're relaxing on your 2-week holiday at the moment, aren't you?
I am. It's a nice time to be stuck on a desert island.
Is there a good time to be stuck on a desert island? I don't really know.
I suppose when you're off work, it's the best time.
It depends what the facilities are like, but that's it. I was right. I'm sure you were one of the original 3.
I was one of the original. Well, 3 including you. It was me and Nath. It was.
Was it just me and me and you two? Was it? I thought it was.
It was. It was
right.
the birth of the Raccoon Boys, which is a little subsect of the TNB, which doesn't see a lot of light on YouTube. But
it doesn't. No. Yeah. Oh yeah. we threw that together at the last minute, and that was it's quite fun to do that. And
yeah, it was a really fun one.
Yeah, lo and behold, here we are, 16 episodes, and about 750 hours later, it's sort of going
on the island.
Back on the island again.
I must be unlucky. I'm the only person who's ever been stuck on this island twice.
I don't know. Eddie and Rob have been on, haven't they?
Oh, they have, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they did their episodes, the ones afterwards. So yeah, you're not quite first, but it's nice to have you back anyway. That's the main thing. Before we get to anything about your games and stuff, we've got your gaming history, which is great. There's a mixture of games in there. We had a quick chat before about your gaming history. There's a couple on here. I like always to get this in before we start. There's a couple on here that we haven't had on before, which is great.
Good.
Not that I've got anything wrong against people bringing the same games along with them, but I like the fact that every now and again we get a new game that comes in. So we'll get to those a bit later, something to look forward to there. Also, a couple of systems that we haven't really gone into great detail about as well. So when we get to those in the gaming history, that'll be interesting to bring those up as well for the first time. However, before we get into that, Pete is a YouTuber. He has his own YouTube channel. That's how I first discovered him, and he was doing videos very differently then to how he does them now. But Pete, if you'd like to take a few moments to talk to the listeners about anybody who's not aware of your channel, about what you do on there, a little bit of a brief overview.
Well, I was doing videos differently then to how I'm doing now, in the way that back then I was doing videos. But yeah, I'm just I don't know. I just set my channel up as just a channel for me. It's like a sort of creative outlet. I mean, for me, gaming is my hobby, and YouTube is sort of a small part of that. So, if I come away with any like free time, if I want to play a game, I'll more likely just sit and play a game rather than make videos. So, as my time's sort of waning a bit, because I've not had much free time lately, I've sort of not been doing much. But I mean, I feel a bit weird because like I went on a break for a month and a half or so, and then I came back, finished my break, did one video, and then I've not done another video for 4 weeks. But but yeah, I do mainly pickups. It has been, but I've mentioned recently that I've kind of got what I want to get game wise, and anything else that I want that I haven't got is probably because it's too much for me to spend money on. So I'm more interested in like collecting consoles and stuff now, stuff that I can mod, like soft mod, or just in the case of like some of them, like the Mega CD, I can just burn games to play. Not, I mean,
Yeah.
backups, you know, obviously.
Yes.
Obviously,
it's very important to mention that.
Yeah. So obviously, I can't just nip into CEX with 20 quid and come away with like 5 or 6 consoles in my pocket like I used to do with games. So the pickup videos have gone sort of by the wayside a little bit, but I'm trying to sort of think of ideas of other things to do and then implement them. So obviously, I mean, there's more things coming. There's more things in the pipeline that I've started to film. I've actually started to film a lot of different projects. One focusing on like mini consoles. There's one I'm doing. I mean, a big part of my collection at the minute is light guns. It's just something I sort of started buying and never really consciously started collecting until I had a collection.
You have an amazing light gun collection, I have to say. I mean,
yeah,
we have been privy to see this, but yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. It really is. I've not known anybody collect that, so you may, in a way, have cornered the market on this already.
Yeah, it's not like I've gone out of my way to get stuff. It's I was kind of jealous about that one that Nath picked up the other day. I don't know if you've watched his pickups.
No, I haven't.
It was like some weird kind of futuristic, almost alien-looking gun. A little bit jealous of that. I've not sort of gone out of my way to buy things apart from the last couple that I've bought, but it's just something that I've always enjoyed playing them. If I ever went to an arcade, I'd always gravitate towards a light gun game. And I don't know. I've now that I've got a few, and I've got a couple that are sort of they were top of the range back in the day, and a few that people might not have seen before. I'm working on a collection video for my light guns, so there's that to look forward to, I suppose. There's other things I'm wanting to
positive about it.
I don't know. I'm not super positive about my channel at the minute. So
well, but as I said, this is something that you see collection. Games. I do game collection videos, but I've never seen anybody do like a light gun one before. So I don't know. I'll be interested to watch that because
I
always remember them, but.
Yeah, I remember one of Sean's first videos that he brought out was his joystick collection, and I really enjoyed watching that. So,
yes, I remember that one.
Should be an interesting thing to look at. But yeah, I want to focus more on sort of more stuff with production value, more stuff with like more camera work as well, and not just me sat waffling in front of the camera like it always has been. But on the sort of same kind of, on the opposite hand, I want to just start doing like I used to vlog. And while I'm not bringing that back, I'm just going to start sort of bringing some kind of just waffle videos out. Just if I get a topic in my head, I'll just sit and waffle in front of the camera and see if that takes on. So if you want to come and visit my channel, that's what you're looking at. Yeah, Guns and Waffle.
Guns and Waffle. Should rename it as Guns and Waffle.
Guns and Waffle. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the mini consoles. I mean, obviously, I'm a bit more. What's the word? Privy to the information that you share with us in our WhatsApp chat. So a lot of people probably won't realise it, but your mini console collection, all these the clone consoles, is just absolutely brilliant. It really is, and I hope you'll do something like that, so we can see those as well. Because I know you've got so many of them, and it's just like, where do you keep finding them?
The clone consoles, I've kind of stopped buying them because I kind of got to a point where I thought, how many different machines do I need that'll play Famicom cartridges?
Loads in case they break.
Well, yeah, because a couple of them have, because most of them are from China and they come with Chinese adapters, and I'm having to find other plugs to like power them. And I knew about stuff like wattage and voltage and stuff. I didn't know about polarity at first, so I was using a Mega Drive adapter to power a Chinese. It was a Mega Drive 2 shaped family clone, that Sean got me for Christmas a few years ago. And yeah, it turned out it needed a negative polarity, and the Mega Drive one was a positive or something like that, and absolutely fried it. So
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's not, it's not easy to get these things running. And then I bought the Chinese Terminator console, and you have to actually sit and hold the power button down for that to play. So
Oh, really? Is it bad as that? Oh, God.
yeah, I mean, my original Terminator, which, I mean, it is a Famicom, but it's like a part-for-part remake of a Famicom. I mean, I'm not going to go too far into the Terminators because it is a bit of a passion of mine, and there is a video on my channel talking about the Terminator consoles.
Yeah.
But yeah, my original one's brilliant, and it still runs perfectly and everything like that, and it runs everything flawlessly. And the pad's a little bit janky, but apart from that, it's that runs perfect. It's just like having a Famicom. But yeah, a lot of the other stuff you can get, the clone consoles are a little bit suspicious, a little bit suspect. But yeah, the mini consoles, I know Dylan's got some decent ones. He's gone for a lot of the Japanese, the Famicom one. He's gone for like the Japanese versions and stuff. I think he went for either the Japanese or American PC Engine one as well. I'm not sure, but I've got every one of the main mini consoles, at least one iteration of it. I'm not sort of going down the rabbit hole of buying every single variation of it, because like some of them, it's like the PC Engine one comes in 3 different sorts and it's exactly the same games on the system.
There's no difference between them, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the outside case. The Famicom ones are different, but it's like they did a gold one, which was like a Shonen Jump special edition one. Shonen Jump is like for those who don't know, it's like a manga magazine in Japan. And all the games are based on manga style games like this, Dragon Ball games and stuff like that. I think Yu Yu Hakusho's on there and stuff. I don't really know much about manga or anime, but they're all role playing games and they're all in Japanese. So I did want to buy that, but I kind of figured that coming from like the perspective of something I've been trying to push, that I'm a gamer first and a collector second. There's not a lot I can do with that as a gamer.
No. You're right.
So I do get the spending bug quite easily. So I've kind of had to really tone myself down with that. But yeah, I've got like one version of every like mini console. Plus, I've got some other little bits that fall into the category, like the Super Retrocade. I've got an old At Games Mega Drive, which I'm also going to make a video about because everybody hates that machine. But it pretty much single-handedly got me back into retro gaming after the PS2 and PS3 came out, and all I was doing was playing modern games.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make that sort of like a kind of appreciation video based on that system.
A tribute.
Yeah. Just reasons not to hate it. Essentially, it's not the best, but it's got a special place in my heart. So yeah, the mini. I mean, it's like Eddie calls me the mini console master or something. I don't know, but yeah, I've just got a nice little dedicated section in my game room for them, and I really enjoy collecting and playing them. I just love how they look.
Yeah,
as much as how they play.
The Super Retrocade was the one that I missed out on because Smiles were getting rid of them at £15, weren't they?
Yeah, super cheap.
Back. Yeah,
I
wish I'd known.
They only came out just before Christmas in this country, and I think my wife got me one for Christmas for about £60.
Yeah, and you can't get them for. I think you can still buy them off Amazon, but they're like 50. They're the retail price.
Yeah,
but I think you sent me that link. I was like, oh, gutted at that.
I know, I was gutted about it too, because they had a bunch of the retro-bit Mega Drive controllers for the Mega Drive Mini as well, the 6-button ones.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and I would have lapped one of those up, because obviously, I mean, the Mega Drive Mini in Japan comes with a 6-button pad, but in this country it just came with the 3-button pad, but it's got Street Fighter on it. And I'm sure somebody, I think it might have been Nerdy Geezer, mentioned it on this show about how the Mega Drive version of Street Fighter, you had your punch buttons, and then you had to press start to switch to the kick buttons, and then start again to switch back to the punch buttons if you had a 3-button pad. And it's just crazy that they thought that was even remotely okay. So it would have been nice to just play Street Fighter with a 6-button pad the way it's kind of supposed to. Because although the SNES version of Street Fighter is technically better, playing it on a joypad with 6 face buttons is the ideal way to play Street Fighter.
A lot of people say that. Yeah, you're right. Thanks for that, Pete. If you are interested in subscribing to Guns and Waffle, as I'm pretty sure the channel will be called soon.
It's my hair metal band, actually, that Guns and Waffle.
I will put a link, as always, in the description below, so you can go across and have a look around Pete's channel. Do show him some support, because he's a great guy. And this is going to be really interesting as well. So if you can do that, that'd be brilliant. Let's kick this off then, Pete. We'll start the Desert Island games. First of all, we start off the gaming history, and there's a couple of systems here which you mentioned, certainly one, which we're going to come across in the first part of this, which I'm really interested to know a little bit more about. And there's one system which I'm very, very close to my own heart. So what was your introduction to gaming?
Well, my dad, when before I was born, he was sort of in the sort of microcomputer scene a lot with his friends. He actually worked as a teacher, and he was the head of IT at the school he worked at. I mean, by the time we actually got around to buying a PC, he knew nothing about it at all. But
did they ever know anything about them, IT teachers?
No.
I got no idea.
But it was like up to the Apple Macintosh. That was where he sort of peaked, and then didn't really know anything after that. But I was born into a household which had at least 2 Spectrums and a Philips video pack in the house, and they were my earliest sort of introduction to gaming.
When you say Spectrums, which versions did you have?
I mean, obviously it's back 36 years, and I'm only 36 years old, so I can't remember too much about it. I know we had a small one with rubber keys.
That would have been the 48K, wouldn't
it? Yeah, sure. And it's just like the really tiny one with the rubber keys. And then we had a big grey one with a built-in cassette deck.
That's the 128K plus 2.
Jesus.
If you asked me that question 5 years ago, I could have told you. It's just I happen to have both now. So, but I always like the big one. That's with the tape built into it as much.
I think that's the one that we had set up first. But I think that one eventually, I think the tape deck broke, and then once that was gone, it was kind of gone. So we moved on to the smaller one after that, and with an external tape player. But we had both of those in the house, and I think my dad, him and his friends were all into like the BBC macros and stuff like that. So they kind of just always him. I think there's a few of his friends from school, from the school where he worked. Were like basically how they were like the nerd scene back then, sort of thing. So we had like tons of like, sort of swapped around, copied cassettes and stuff like that, and absolutely tons to play on those. But I think at the age I was at, I was kind of a little bit too young to really get most of the games. Ones that really stick out for me, we had one called Valhalla. I don't know if you ever played that.
I've heard of it. I haven't played it.
Yeah, it was like a sort of text adventure, but it had actually had an image on the screen of what was happening, and it was all based around like getting to Valhalla. I think you were like just a normal person, and you had to sort of navigate your way through the Norse mythology and everything like that, and find your way to Valhalla, and sort of interact with different characters like along the way, and eventually you probably meet somebody you'd have to fight, and if you died, you got sent to Helheim and had to escape from Helheim back through, I want to say, Niflheim. Is that the?
Well, your memory's better than mine. I wouldn't have a clue.
I'm just trying to think back to Norse mythology.
You could just be saying random names here, and I wouldn't have the clue. You could be making this up.
I think Midgar is Earth, and then I think Niflheim's another kind of like. I think that might be some kind of purgatory or something. But I don't know. I can't remember. But I just remember it's just seeing like the little matchstick men. Like you'd definitely know when you saw Thor because he had a big hammer stuck out the front of him, and just interacting, like just seeing what would happen if, like, you say you give a cake to Freya or somebody like that. One thing I do remember is that if you typed in a swear word, this little character had come across the screen, and it'd just say Mary is not amused. And I think she was I think she was a dwarf, and she'd just sort of shuffle across the screen and then walk up and slap you, and then and hours of fun just typing. Like, well, it'd do it if like there was some dogs like hellhounds, and I can't remember what they were called, but if you tell one to sit, she'd obviously interpret that as a similar sounding word.
Right.
Give you a slap.
Oh dear! But it's great when they put little things in like that. It just keeps you amused, doesn't it? You wouldn't.
Yeah.
A little bit different.
But obviously we had like other things like we had like Jet Set William, Manic Miner, Attic Attack. I believe Marble Madness, was that on the Spectrum or was that later?
It came out on pretty much most things. It was a early mid 80s arcade game. So, I mean, I'd be surprised if it wasn't converted to the Spectrum.
I know it was on the Amiga because I actually have a copy on my shelf over there. It's my only Amiga game.
Oh, is it really? Oh, right.
Yeah, my only physical Amiga game. The rest are backups, obviously. Yeah, but we had another game called Deus Ex Machina, I think, or just Ex Machina, and it had nothing to do with like Deus Ex games that you get nowadays. It was like this sort of massive sort of epic story where you'd start off as like a fetus in a womb, and you'd have to like sort of control the heartbeat of the baby and stuff, make sure you didn't start, make sure that heartbeat didn't start going too fast or too slow, and eventually you're born, and it shows every stage of your life, and your goal is just to survive basically through to old age. And it had an audio cassette that came with it. After you loaded the game up, you swapped the cassette over to the audio cassette, and it was like, it wasn't Orson Welles, but it was that kind of voice telling the story. That just springs to mind because, like, I love War of the Worlds and stuff. So,
I'm sure I read an article on that in Retro Gamer magazine once, and I remember being absolutely enthralled by it. I thought, wow, what a great game that sounds, especially when you consider how many years ago that was to produce a game which, technically, pretty damn sophisticated for that era.
Yeah, and it was one that was definitely too sophisticated for me to play as a toddler, but it's still stuck with me. And it's like, I remember, like, I just odd bits of it. Like, there was one bit where you're like a really overweight man and you're having to run and do hurdles and stuff to try and get yourself in shape so you don't die on the spot, and just stuff like that's like really stuck with me. I've not got the affinity with it to want to sort of seek out a Spectrum. I spoke to you about this. Because you said if I ever do, I should talk to you and Mrs. Bear. But
yeah, we got a house full of them. I don't know where they keep coming from. I think I've got certainly 3. And then I know she's got probably a couple of knocking round. We've got the ZX81, the 48K. We got the what's the other one? Oh, the 48K plus, I think it is.
Yeah,
so we've got quite a few of them.
It's something I'm going to have to sort of. I mean, I feel like I should, because I've got, in front of me on my desk here, I've got my video pack and I've got my Amiga. I've got my Mega Drive 2 sat over there. Apart from my DMG Game Boy, I've not got. That's the only thing I've not got on the Spectrum to really tie my childhood together. So I do feel like I should get a Spectrum at some point. I've just not got the drive to play the games as much.
Even if you purchase one and just had it in your collection for that purpose, to say, well, this is how it all started from. Yeah. But if you haven't got the affinity for it, then it becomes a shelf piece, doesn't it? You can say, well, I've got one. Do you ever want to go down that route at some point in the future? I mean, it's a strange. I mean, I've got no affinity to it because I never played on one much when I was younger at all, if ever. But I've always wanted one. So, one of my goals over the last 4 years was to finally manage to get one in my collection, and I've played it briefly, but not a great deal. And I'd like to put a bit more time into it.
Well, another game I really do remember playing and I really did love was School Days.
Yes,
which was, you play as Eric the schoolboy and you've got to kind of survive a day at school without getting too much detention or something like that. And you've got to, certain things like collecting all the different emblems off the wall, getting certain people into trouble and stuff like that. And if you get so many lines, then you fail the game. But I really super enjoyed playing that. But I've got my Commodore 64 Mini. I've loaded that with ROMs, and I've got that on there, so I can have sat and played that. And I've also got on Steam on the PC. I've got an updated version of that which merges that and the sequel. I can't remember what the sequel was called. But it had the girls' school bit on as well. That
Back
you can
to
go
school, was it?
Back to school, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a one on Steam. I can't remember what it's called now, the actual thing, but it is School Days and Back to School all rolled into one game. So I can play this game, and that was definitely my favourite Spectrum game of all time, really. So I've got access to a lot of the stuff that I would like to play, but I don't know. It's not high on my agenda, but maybe one day.
Well,
like
Wonder Woman. Yeah.
Like I said, I like getting systems more than I like getting games now. So you never know. Maybe when Doncaster opens back up, and I might just see one and decide to get one.
Spur of the moment thing, isn't it? They are quite readily available. It's not too difficult to track one down.
No.
Just find out which sort of version you want. That's a Spectrum. I'm really interested to find out a bit more about the Philips video pack, because I know so little about this. I'm glad you were going to bring it up in conversation. So
it is one that I managed to pick up last Doncaster market before everything went to hell, and there hasn't been one since. I managed to get one from sort of the people who go into homes and sort of clear them out. I can't think of the word at the minute.
House clearances.
House clearance, yeah. I said the word home and clear.
Yes, yeah.
I couldn't think of house clearance.
You're not the first person to say something like that on this program and then be corrected by myself and sort of say, "Is that what you're talking about?" Yes, it is. There we go.
But yeah, there was a stall at Doncaster doing that kind of thing, and they kind of just didn't really know what anything was worth, and certain things they were selling off like, I don't know, they'd try and sell off like a Mega Drive for £100 or something like that, and it'd be far too much. But I asked him how much he wanted for. I think they had a couple of video packs, and he said the loose one was 50, and the boxed one was I think it was 75. And I'm not in the market for paying more for cardboard. Yeah. You know me, I'm not precious about stuff like that. So I took the £50 one, and he was kind of went, "Oh, I tell you what," and just gave me a bag full of stuff as well. There were loads of games, extra joysticks, and everything in it. So. That's how I've got one in my collection now. But yeah, essentially, it was known in the States as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. Right. But over here, it was released by Philips under the title of the video pack. And it's I always thought it was 4-bit, but it's not. It's 8-bit, because apparently most calculators struggle to run under 4 bits. But it's an 8-bit system, but it's like a very, very rudimentary 8-bit system. It's sort of... I think it kind of after the 2600, but I don't think it's really quite up to the 2600 specs.
Oh, right, okay.
It's very, very sort of, kind of big blocky sprites on the screen, like bleepy sound effects and stuff like that. But because it's got a keyboard on it and it's technically a computer, we had one in the house. And I don't know why we had one. I'd never met anybody else who's owned one, apart from, I think, Retro Kit now has one. But he has one because I got one. But yeah, it's just big, 2600 style cartridges, big clunky cartridges that make a big, massive clunk noise when you put them in the machine. And just that kind of simplistic gameplay. And the fact that you didn't need it permanently set up at a desk like you did with the Spectrums. They didn't have to have a permanent space. So we'd occasionally just dig this out and just stick it in the living room on the main TV and just gather around as a family and sit and play these games. There was one which I actually bought it before I bought the console on the Doncaster the year before. I bought it from, without even knowing it was him, I bought it from Craig's Here Again. Nice. This game called Satellite Attack, and this was the first game I ever remember really loving. And it is literally just a UFO in the middle of the screen, and you've got a force field that spins round. But there's the force field's just little squares, but the biggest square in the force field is your gun. And as the force field spins, your gun rotates around your ship. So you don't have a way. It's a bit like sort of Asteroids, but you don't have a way of aiming your gun. You have to time it right so the gun's pointing where you want to shoot when you want to shoot it.
Asteroids sprung to mind when you said that. Yes.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. You're on the screen. There's like asteroids flying around and stuff. Occasionally, a UFO will fly past and try shooting you. You've got a shield which can absorb some of the damage. Like if you hit an asteroid, it's not game over straight away. It's you can absorb a little bit of damage before you blow up. But just playing that game, it's the first time I've ever really sort of remember thinking this is brilliant. Even though we had the Spectrum, which was more powerful in the house, that's what I loved, and I loved having it on the big screen, and the sound effects, like just all the bleeping and sort of static noises instead of explosions and stuff like that. It's it was like what gaming was to me. There was another game, I can't remember what it was called. I've not been able to rebuy this, but it was like your typical, like, I think you're in a circus and you've got a clown with like a little bouncy thing, like a trampoline in its hand, and there's like, for some reason, babies falling out of a tower, and you've got to bounce them along to like a safe place. A bit like the bonus level from Earthworm Jim 2, I think it is.
Yeah,
where they're throwing the puppies out.
Can you imagine sending the concept of that game today to people? So what we got? We got a clown with a trampoline, and we've got somebody throwing babies out of a building, and what he's going to do is bounce the babies across the trampoline. It's good, wholesome family fun.
Yeah. What if you miss the babies? They die.
Yeah, big mess on the floor.
Yeah.
You see the horrified looks on their face.
But yeah, there was that. There was like billiards, which I've never been able to play pool or snooker or billiards or anything. There was a Pac-Man clone called Munchkin.
I love the names of these clones. They're fantastic. They really are.
But yeah, just stuff like, I think there was there's just a straight Space Invaders clone. It wasn't Space Invaders. I can't remember what it was called, but I do have that as well. I think it might have been Space Monster. But yeah, it's just this big, clunky silver, like 1983. I think it came out.
Right.
Just this big, massive space age bit of plastic I've now got on my table in front of me, and I just loved it to bits. So happy to re-get that, because my mum would occasionally go on like big cleaning sprees, like spring cleaning sprees in the house, and that went in one of those. Both the video pack and the Amiga both went in one of those.
Oh god!
Yeah,
you're joining a long list of people who've told me tales of woe of stuff that got thrown away.
It's not even the worst. The worst of it was she threw away a stack of games that I had on the PlayStation. I've told a couple of people this, so I don't know if I've told you this, but I had a chipped PlayStation, so I had a load of copied games, and they were just discs, and I had them on a spool, like the big spools that you get blank discs on.
Yeah.
But I also knew somebody who worked in the video game media. I think he worked for Future Publishing.
Right.
And he'd occasionally get stuff like review copies of games and stuff, and they'd be throwing them out, so he'd occasionally pass them on to me. And I had an almost finished code of Thrill Kill.
Oh yes.
Yeah, the band fighting game. And I had a sort of preview code of Resident Evil 2, what's now known as Resident Evil 1.5,
right,
where you could only play about half an hour of it and then it'd finish, and the characters weren't Leon and Claire, they were Leon and Elsa. And the whole scenario was kind of really different. The graphics were all different, and I think the zombies in it was still the zombies from Resident Evil 1. But yeah, I had those both on. I mean, you can buy them now. You can download them and burn them to disk easily, or you can buy repros and stuff. But I had them both on black disc, proper PlayStation discs, and they would have been worth probably in the thousands now.
And she threw them out.
And she threw them out on a spring clean, along with all my copied games.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
You don't know what to say to something like that, do you, really?
No, I'll probably never truly forgive her for that.
It's just one of those things that happens, isn't it? But you're not the first person to say that, and you probably won't be the last person either.
My mum's
thrown away.
My mum was legendary for a spring cleaning, especially if she'd sort of walk in my bedroom one day when I was at school and it was an absolute state, because I've never been a tidy guy. she would go on a sort of a rage clean, and just everything in a way would just get chucked in a bin bag and thrown out.
I'd hate to imagine what would be going on around here if Mrs. Bear did that, because there wouldn't be anything left. It'll all be gone.
Yeah.
So much stuff everywhere. System I know so little about, so I'm now going to do a bit of reading about that. And but no, that's good, and I think definitely the first person to talk about that on here. I'm pretty sure of it. You mentioned the Amiga. I mean, that's obviously a system quite close to my heart that people know about. What was the experience like with that for you?
Well, with that, it's by that point, a bunch of my friends had got Mega Drives. We were very much a Sega-centric village where I grew up. I think there was one kid that had a SNES, and he was sort of a bit of a sociopath, and no one really liked him. So,
they tend to be.
Yeah. So we all had Mega Drives, but I obviously didn't, because my dad, being a teacher, he wouldn't allow anything in the house if it wasn't educational in some way. I mean, we had the Spectrum, we had the Philips. We didn't have anything educational on either of those machines. But because it was, possible for you to actually type, or, I mean, in the case of the Amiga, we had deluxe paint and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, without any kind of, if it was just a dedicated games machine, we weren't allowed it because it wasn't educational enough, and it just rot his brains, apparently.
Yep.
So, yeah. So my sister Helen, she used to babysit for. My mum was a childminder, and one of the families that my mum childminded for, my sister Helen would babysit for them in the evening if they wanted to go out. So, so my mum would have the kids over at our house, but then my sister would go to their house to babysit for their kid. And they had an Amiga. And she went and babysat for them one night, and it was a late one. So she essentially just put the kid to bed, and they'd said, like, oh, yeah, just watch TV, do what you want. Just make sure if he cries, make sure you're there for him. And they're like, oh, yeah, you can play on the computer if you want. And she saw this Amiga, and she spent all night playing this. And she came back to me the next morning, because obviously I was probably in bed when she got home. So the next day she's like, I've found the best thing in the world, and it's a loophole that we can get around.
She's been up all night thinking this up, hasn't she? She's been playing.
Yeah. We were complete. I mean, she's one of my best friends now. She's one of my like genuinely closest friends. We have like a board game group, and she's part of that. And we sort of, before lockdown, we'd get together every 2 weeks to play board games and things. But back then we were quite. She's got sort of very severe bipolar disorder. And back then that wasn't a thing. It was manic schizophrenia, and they didn't prescribe it. They didn't diagnose it. Yeah. Unless they really thought they had to. So back then she was like just a problem child. And we were quite often at each other's throats. But like I say, she's been diagnosed and medicated, and everything's fine now. And we're really close friends. But for us to join forces on something back then was like unheard of. So she took me to one side the next morning. She's like, look, I've been to this house. They've got an Amiga. I'm like, what's an Amiga? She's like, exactly. So she was telling me.
It could be a fridge. It could be a television. It could be.
But she was telling me about it. And she's like, it's a computer. You can type on it. You can do artwork on it. Because Dad used to bring home the micros and stuff in school holidays and things like that. She's like, but you can play games on it too, and the games are like playing TV. I remember that's the exact way she put it. It's like playing TV. And she's like, I've already asked him if next time I babysit, I can bring you along. And I was like, oh, brilliant. So I went along with her next time she had a late one, and my mum had said I could go, and I'd stay up late with her and everything like that. And we stuck this Amiga on, and I remember the games we played. We played Neighbours, the video game.
Oh, good grief!
If I remember rightly, it was like a skateboarding game.
It was terrible.
Yeah,
utterly awful game.
Venus the Flytrap.
Very underrated game, that. And that's
yeah,
quite expensive to get hold of now. If you've got to try and get an original copy, it's very expensive.
really good though, and really good looking.
Mm.
Turrican.
Yeah.
And I think the last game that we played was Body Blues.
Oh, the Team 17 for
the
fighting game,
1-on-1 fighter.
Yeah.
And yeah, immediately I was like, this is amazing, because it looked nicer than both the Mega Drive and the SNES, in my opinion. The graphics were better and the sound was better, and it just blew me away. So we got home, and then the next morning, immediately, it was probably about July, August time. And the next morning, we started this campaign on my dad to get an Amiga, and it just carried on and carried on and carried on until we got to Christmas. And he finally they relented and said, like, we'll get one, because we were in sort of a little bit of financial trouble when I was a really small child, so we didn't get anything aside from Christmas and birthdays, and we didn't get a lot then. But my dad finally decided then and there that we would get one that Christmas, and it was for everybody, for the whole household. And there was like me, 2 sisters, my mum and dad, and that was all we got that Christmas for any of us. And bit of a cop out for everybody else, because it was only me and my sister that played it, and my dad occasionally. Yeah, we got an Amiga 600, something like the Speed Freaks pack. It came with one of the F1 games, Putty, Pushover, and I think there was a big box game in there as well, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah,
it would be Formula One Grand Prix, wasn't it? Was the that was great game. Pushover, I think, was really good as well.
Yeah, Pushover was really good. It was Pushover and Putty were the ones that I were super into. I've never really been into F1, so. But yeah, we got that, and it was amazing, really good. And as we sort of went along, we think eventually the 600 packed in, and we I want to say dropped down to a 500 plus, but I think the 500 plus was technically better than the 600. But when you're a kid and you're just looking at numbers, it's just like
it's lower than the
600 is better, yeah. And then we moved on. I think one of my dad's friends was getting rid of a 1200, so we upgraded to a 1200 later on. But
1200,
yeah. We had these Amigas all the way through, all the way through up to well into like PS1 times. And Mum, being a childminder, she always had kids around, and they were all of them were like, they all had consoles and stuff. But if you ever like said you want to play on the Amiga, they're like, yeah, let's play the Amiga. It was like just this source of excitement for everybody. And again, I was the only person I knew who had one. Like at my age, sort of thing. So, but everywhere we went, every time we mentioned one, someone had always got, "Oh, it's a brilliant machine," and stuff like that. But you never actually saw somebody who owned one.
I was the same at school. I was the only one who had one for probably about 12 months, and then everybody got one after that.
Well, nobody where I was from had one at all, apart from obviously the people that my sister babysat for.
Yeah. I think I adopted the same tactics your sister came up with. It was just sort of work on my parents over that and focus on the fact that it can be educational as well as this. Okay, we'll get it for the educational purposes, and of course it never got used for that, did it? Really?
Yeah, well, we had Deluxe Paint. Like that was another thing that came with it, Deluxe Paint 3. But I mean, fair enough, we did use that a lot, but we didn't have like the RAM upgrade or anything. We didn't have a printer or anything like that, so we couldn't actually use it to actually do anything useful.
Constructive. It was complete. I remember playing those and thinking, well, without the upgrade, I had to work with my dad for years to get the upgrade on that one.
Yeah,
and without a printer, it was just wasting time, really.
Yeah, again, I think my dad had occasionally, like when he brought the BBCs home, I think one of the dot matrix printers he had would hook up to the Amiga, but it was a dot matrix printer. You couldn't really do much with it.
Not the great, it's more of a Game Boy printer attached to it,
But the Amiga was with me for a long time, and it is probably the system that's had the biggest impact in my childhood and me growing up, which is why I bought Sean's Amiga 500 off him about a year ago, and I've had all sorts of issues with that. But I paid to get it recapped. I've got custom parts for it and everything like that. I've put in probably double what I paid for the actual machine since I've bought it. I've put in probably like another third of double the price, getting it up to scratch and everything. But it means that much to me. There's still things I want to do to it. I want to get an optical mouse for it and stuff like that. But,
right. We had a trackball for ours. Cause I think I used to play a lot of games involving the mouse, so used to burn through those, but own his business, and we felt it was better just to buy a trackball. I never known anybody else who had a trackball ever.
I think I've used one. I don't know if we ever actually had one though, but I know I've used one because it had a big purple ball on it. It was like. I was just saying, it was just like a cradle with 2 buttons on the front and like a big purple ball. I think the buttons were purple as well.
Well, the one I had was white. It had the 2 buttons on the front, and the actual ball itself was clear plastic. I think it used to light up as well. It used to light up when it moved around. It was great. Honestly, I worked far, far better than the mouse. In fact, I remember trying to go back to use the mouse afterwards. It isn't the same. It's slower. Yeah. It isn't technically right, but I never knew anybody else who had a trackball.
Well, I'm hoping because I know you can get like a USB adapter for the mouse, the mouse port on the Amiga now. So I'm hoping when the Amiga Mini comes out, because the mouse that comes with that is modelled after the Amiga mouse, like the square one with the square buttons on it and everything. But I'm hoping it is actually an optical mouse. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be. And if it is an optical USB mouse, I'm hoping if I get one of those USB adapters, I can just use it on my actual Amiga as well.
Yeah.
So I'm holding off doing that until that comes out.
Interesting stuff. I mean, it's a machine from my youth, and I know all about it. And I think those of us who grew up with it and played it, I just got so fond memories. And I'm lucky to have a load of backups and a 500 and a 1200 now. So I'm well stocked for Amigas as they were, which is great.
I think my first ever actual new game that I bought new was on the Amiga. Well, not bought, but got as like a birthday present one year. I believe it was Sleepwalker, the comic relief game.
Yeah. Didn't like that so much.
Did you not? I loved that game. The Lenny Henry voiceover and everything like that.
Yeah. There were certain aspects. I prefer pushover. I don't know why. For some reason, I think the 2 games were intertwined, but of course, the only reason they're intertwined because Lenny Henry was involved.
Lenny Henry, yeah.
the voice of the cartoon dog on the Quavers adverts, which was what the characters in Pushover were from. So yeah.
I don't believe because Pushover was out on the consoles as well, wasn't it? I don't believe it's actually got the Quavers connection on the consoles.
I think it came out on the Super Nintendo. I don't think it made it onto the Mega Drive. I think it was a SNES game.
Yeah.
Something at the back of my mind thinks it was SNES.
Saying that, Sleepwalker also came out on the SNES, but it was rebranded as Eek the Cat from the Eek the Cat cartoons that used to be on Nickelodeon, I think, or Cartoon Network.
Yeah, Eek the Cat. It wasn't on Nickelodeon. It was. I don't think it was. No, I think it was a completely separate production.
I know. I remember the cartoon. I just can't remember what I watched it on because it was like a purple cat. He said "Kumbaya" all the time, didn't he?
Yeah. What a great catchphrase for a cartoon cat, "Kumbaya." I used to love that. I remember seeing on probably Live and Kicking or whatever it was on a Saturday morning on BBC One. I think that's when I first came across it. But it probably would have got run onto stuck on a cable channel somewhere after that. Yeah. I didn't know that because I've played that because I remember going through the ROMs and I saw Eat the Cat. I thought, oh, I'll have a quick look at that, and I thought I wasn't very impressed with it. But now you mentioned it,
it literally is the same level design and everything. It's just a repainted Sleepwalker because it's the granny that's sleepwalking in Eat the Cat, and you've got to guide her, whereas it's the little boy Lee, I think he was called, on Sleepwalker that you've got to guide to safety. It's the exact same game. I just don't think they had enough faith in it for it to sell. Without a sort of a brand behind it.
Yeah. Eat the Cat. That's brilliant. I've just completely forgotten about that program. I used to love that.
Yeah.
Cat with a great catchphrase and very exaggerated cartoon eyes, and we get used to get hit by various things. Really, Tom and Jerry violence, wasn't it? I suppose is the best way to think about it.
It was sort of Tom and Jerry violence, but for the 90s, so it was kind of a bit more souped up, a little bit more violent.
Did you ever see that operatic episode they did? So we're going on one of our legendary tangents now, sorry. But they did like an opera episode where all the characters were just singing, except most of them couldn't sing. It was. I tested it once and never again. I thought, have I imagined this? If anybody else has seen that, let me know.
I mean, I don't remember much about Eat the Cat. 'Cause it was not something I saw very often. But I remember thinking the catchphrase "Kumbaya." I didn't know what that meant or anything. And then there was one episode where they were singing around a campfire, and he started singing "Kumbaya, my lord," and that was a song that we used to sing at school, and I'd not made the connection that it was the same word.
It's like,
It blew my mind.
I'll have to try and track that one down again because I've not seen that for years.
No.
There we go. So an Eat the Cat tangent, right? We'll come back from that one. We'll step away from your gaming history for the moment, and we want to start moving on to games that you decided to bring to your desert island with you. So we would like to sort of take the first one off your list. We're not no particular order, Pete. If you remember the order you gave them to me beforehand, can you remember the order you gave them to me beforehand?
I've got it written down in front of me actually. Came prepared.
Yeah, rather than jump around all over the place, give us your first one off the list.
My first one off the list. Well, firstly, I know for the people who come looking for the retro stuff, I've gone mostly sort of modernish because I've picked games that are not necessarily my favourites, but ones that I would be, I'd be able to pass the time with on a desert island and not get bored. So
that's how it should work. That's what everybody does now. That they've listened to the first few, and they've now adapted the same stance that if I'm going to be stuck on a desert island, I need something that's going to fill me time, or it's going to be a game where I can keep going back to and back to and back to. So you're not the first one to come to that conclusion.
Well, the first one on my list is one that's the series has been with me for a long time. It's very important to me, and it sort of factors into my history, but sort of fast forwarding about 20 years. And I've chosen it had to be one of the Animal Crossing series. It really had to be, but I've gone for the most recent one, New Horizons on the Switch. The series itself, it's important to me because it was the GameCube one that came out in 2008, maybe.
All right.
It was one of the first things that me and my now wife, bonded over. At the time, it was my wife wasn't a gamer. A brother and a dad were, but she wasn't particularly. But because I've never sort of been able to drift off to sleep at night, I used to play video games at night to tire myself out. So she bought a PS2 to have at her house. So when I stayed over, I had something to do after she'd gone to sleep. But I remember one morning I got up from hers. She was going to work, so I got up and I sort of went into town with her as she was going to work, and I kind of wandered around and I picked up Animal Crossing on the GameCube just out of the blue. And for those who don't know, it's like a little sort of life simulator game where you live in a forest full of animals, and you start off, you've only got a tiny little room, and you've got like a cardboard box and a lamp, and that's it. And you gradually do sort of different things for different animals. You start off, you're working for the guy who runs the shop, and you're sort of paying off your debts to him because he's sold you the house. And then you do like jobs for animals and stuff. They give you things that you can either sell on, or they'll give you money. You can like buy things. You can upgrade your house so your room gets bigger, and then you get a second floor and all kinds of things like that. And it's just wholesome and nice and relaxing. And the key to it was that it ran in real time as well. So, you'd go on at night and everybody would be in bed, but you'd sort of be able to hunt like nocturnal bugs and stuff like that. And then you'd go in the daytime, people would get up at different times and go to bed at different times and things like that. You just had to sort of time your gameplay around the schedule of the game. And it was just like nothing I'd played before, and it was really relaxing. And I showed it to my then girlfriend. The next time I went to her house, I took my GameCube with me, and we immediately the next day went out and traded her PS2 in for a GameCube. And she bought the game as well. So for a while, me and my wife were sat playing this game, like constantly talking about it, what had happened in each other's towns, going to visit each other's towns and like trading villagers, trading items and stuff like that. And it became one of the first things like that we majorly bonded over as a couple. And there's been the DS version, the 3DS version, the Wii version, and now the Switch version, and we've got each one, and we've always played them together. And it's like stuff like we've spent like New Year's Eve, where everybody else was going to parties and stuff, or watching Jules Holland or whatever. We'd be sat playing Animal Crossing, waiting for the fireworks on the TV and stuff like that. counting down to midnight with the little animals. We've got like favorite animals. Like my wife's, there's been this little green bird called Admiral who was in the first one, and he was cut out of the rest of the games, and then he finally came back in the latest one and stuff like that. And she was like so happy to see him. It was like an old friend that she'd not seen for so many years. There's this little bear called Poncho that I hate for no reason whatsoever.
Bears are very difficult to get along with.
But no, I couldn't stand this little bastard bear, and I don't know why, because all they have is a few stock phrases. It's just the way how he looked at you and the way how he was so chipper and everything like that. I couldn't stand him. And it's just little memories like that of this series going through the years. And I mean, I was hesitant to choose the latest one because I have not actually experienced it to its full potential, because on the Switch you can only have one town per console, and because it was my wife's game, I let her be the player one sort of thing, so she gets all the benefits of being player one. She gets to like decide the layout of the town and stuff like that, or the island as it is in the latest one, and I've just been sort of a side character who just plods about upgrading my house and stuff like I used to. So I was thinking about choosing the 3DS version because that's the last one that I had a proper experience on, but it's sort of upgraded so much between that one and this new one that, I had to choose the Switch version. I mean, apart from maybe the DS one, they're all amazing games anyway. I never really sort of got on with the DS one, but the Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch, I could start that from scratch, and I I did spend maybe 8-9 months just solely playing that game. At least dipping into it for an hour or two a day, and just having so much fun with it. I know a lot of people have turned their nose up at the series because you don't get to kill anything, and it's very childlike. But in terms of a relaxing pace and time, if you got the time to kill, then I honestly couldn't recommend this series more, and I could recommend it to literally anybody as well. You can make genuine friends, as weird as it sounds. You make actual friends, and inadvertently you make actual enemies, which I'm not sure you're supposed to do. I think I might be playing that a bit wrong. It's just I can't. It's got so many memories for me, and it's got so much of a connection for me. But it's also genuinely an amazing game, and it was my game of the year last year. New Horizons.
It's definitely a series that I've always said I want to play and experience myself, but I've just haven't had the time to do it. And
you need to make the time for a game like that. It's not one that's just going to wait around for you. If you don't go on it for a couple of weeks, you'll come back and your island's full of weeds and all your villagers have moved away and stuff like that.
That's it. It's probably a game that I excuse me. I do sort of say this. It's probably maybe 30 years too late for me.
Yeah,
because I can. If I think about the games I was playing when I was younger, I'd have made time for this. But now I can't. So I can't really see myself playing it, which is a real shame, because I'd hate to think I could go through life without actually experiencing a good long session on it to get some actual gameplay into it, and I probably won't get to do that now, which is a bit of a shame, really, because everything else I have to stop just to do it.
The Switch or the 3DS are the perfect platforms for it, because you can just take it with you. I remember when the Gamecube one came out, it's like I'd be thinking like, right, tomorrow I'm getting up, I'm going to like college or something, and then after college I've got band practice, and then after that I'm going so and so, and I'm not going to get home till like 10 o'clock. So Sally gets up at 7 and she goes to bed at 9, so I need to set my alarm to get up and make sure I speak to Sally and give her this gift. I'd be basing my day around it.
I can also see what you say about making friends and enemies, because although they're characters in the game, you get very attached to it. And I always just say the other end of the scale about football manager games, if you get very attached to certain players, you can so you have that like emotional bond between them, which adds to the game further. So you do make good friends through it. or think people you can trust, and there are people inevitably that you don't like. And
it's kind of the same for me at the minute playing Cannon Fodder on the Evercade. I've got a shoehorn the Evercade in.
Okay. Pete's Evercade corner making an appearance.
Yeah, playing Cannon Fodder on that, it's like I've just randomly got because as people die, you recruit more. I just randomly got one incoming called Pete, and I've vowed that Pete's going to survive this game all the way through. And the first mission I took him on, he was the sole survivor, like completely. I mean, obviously you don't get to choose who gets shot because they just move in a line, but I'm sort of saving before every mission because I don't want to sacrifice Pete. I think that me and Pete now have gone, we've gone through too much together.
Yeah. Come out the other side.
Yeah, so I'm only about sort of 7 or 8 missions into Cannon Fodder, but I need to make sure Pete sees it through.
And this game was actually, you mentioned lockdown. I don't want to dwell on that too much, but this game was released during that
right at the very
crisis
start
period, wasn't it? And then it was just the ideal game for something like that as well.
I firmly believe that the Animal Crossing New Horizons probably saved some people's lives.
I completely agree.
Yeah, it was just the absolute perfect. It's even sprung into my mind. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but it's sprung into my mind that Nintendo orchestrated the whole thing to sell this game. But no, the last time we went out before lockdown was we went to Crystal Peaks Shopping Centre in Sheffield, and I bought the Power A wireless controller for the Switch, the Pro controller, the Animal Crossing design one. And it was just after the game had come out, like maybe 2 days after the game had come out, and that was like the last time we left the house before lockdown. So it was just right on the cusp of lockdown.
Yeah,
and I know it's there's two things really that got us through, that got my wife through, especially because obviously I was still going to work, I was still like seeing people and going out and stuff. But my wife was completely hermited by this lockdown. So there's like literally 2 things I think that really got her through, and that was like that and the cat, because we got the cat in lockdown as well. So I'd credit those 2 things with essentially keeping her sane throughout the whole lockdown.
Yeah, and you're completely right. I think so many people would have been saved by that game. During that period of time when you couldn't really do much else. I mean, I'm like you. I was going out to work, and it's like the same thing. So, but my other half was very much stuck indoors, and so I can understand that. It's very strange, but no, it's a good choice game though. We haven't done that one before, so.
Nice, interesting statistic about though. While we're on the subject of lockdown,
Yep.
Every lockdown has started in this country while I've been on holiday from work.
Oh no! Should worry that Pete is in the middle of a 17-day holiday at the moment. So,
so get your time rolling.
Yeah, well, I guess we're in the middle of a food and energy crisis at the moment. So, there's some sort of crisis every time you're on holiday. I'm guessing that's probably what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking that we might need that toilet roll now to barter for food in the future. You do realise we'd have to. I'll trade you 6 rolls of toilet paper for a pork loin steak or something. I don't know. State we're in at the moment. Right, moving on from Animal Crossing then. I think this game appeared on your original list, didn't it? When we did it.
It did, yeah, but it's far too important for me to leave it out because I'm hoping people have forgotten. Like the original list I had. I'm sure some people, because me and Nate were on top form that night, I'm sure some people have blocked out our memory.
I think most people did. Was it one of the better viewed episodes? Which is a shame because I thought it was a good one. But anyway,
it was hilarious for us, but I'm sure some people couldn't figure out how to follow it.
Yeah,
but I noticed as well, like talking about this in Animal Crossing, a lot of the things on my list are non-violent games, which is strange as well. But yeah, it's a PC game. It's The Sims 2, and again, it's a game that a lot of people turn their nose apart. But The Sims, it's always been a series I've liked. I mean, I dropped off it on Sims 3 because I don't know, it just didn't. The whole look of the game didn't appeal to me, and after everything that I'd got on Sims 2, because I got all the expansions and a load of user-created content and stuff like that, I didn't fancy starting again. But I do play The Sims 4 now, and it is really good. But The Sims 2, I'm talking at a time at its peak when it was still very supported by the sort of modding community and stuff. That's kind of the area of Sims that I want on a desert island with me. And chiefly because this game is the game easily that I have spent the most time on in my entire life. I've thousands of hours I've put into The Sims 2. And I don't particularly play it. I just build, and I'll build like I'll sort of start with like just an empty lot, an empty sort of town or island or whatever. In fact, what I started doing towards the end was, if you got SimCity 2000, I think it was, or SimCity, it wouldn't be 2000. One of the sort of later releases. If you got that, you could sort of create a square on your map on SimCity and export it into The Sims, and use that as a base for building on, for building your Sims towns on. So I'd sort of create like the biggest area I could on The Sims, on SimCity, with the most road possible, and then export that into The Sims 2, and I'd create just massive sprawling towns. And I found a way of like linking up, like you could have different districts, like your shopping district and your university district and stuff.
Yeah.
But you could also, I found you could build like housing on those as well. So I'd have like this sprawling like country basically of just different houses that I built with different people in. You know, like I'd have one area with people I knew from school and college and work. I'd make all those and like their families and stuff. I'd have like downloading user content. I'd have like people from different games and stuff all living in different houses in different like districts in the places. I know it sounds really sad, but it's like I spent hours making this stuff. It's like I had a little cartoon area where I had like the Simpsons there, and I'd downloaded like proper yellow skins for them and everything, and I'd have like Ned Flanders living next door with Rod and Todd and Maud. I have like the Griffins and the Clevelands, not the Clevelands, the Browns, and like Joe and Bonnie and stuff from Family Guy. Obviously, I mean, you couldn't have the wheelchair for Joe, but I'd have characters there based on them, like the Flintstones and all that kind of thing, all like living in like a cartoon town. I'd have like a sci-fi area where I'd have like,
brilliant.
Yeah, I'd have like a house with like, in fact, actually, I had a house with a load of Star Trek characters in it. And I managed to find for the outer sort of world area a massive Deep Space Nine that just sort of hovered on your world. So I'd have that just there, just hovering above where all the Star Trek characters live. I'd have like the Star Wars people. I'd have like
this was taken thousands of hours.
Yeah, literally thousands of hours, and
yeah,
and downloading things and everything. I had like gigabytes and gigabytes on my hard drive just full of content for The Sims. I had like,
wow.
I had a proper sort of faithful recreation of the mansion from Tomb Raider with Lara Croft living in it.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I started off with one. It was the mansion from the original Tomb Raider on the PlayStation, but then I found someone had recreated the mansion from Tomb Raider Legend as well. So I eventually swapped that out. So I just spent hours just putting these things together and sort of cultivating relationships. Like I had like a couple of Silent Hill houses, and on one of them I had like Harry Mason from the first one living with I think she's called Sybil, the police officer from the first one, as a couple, and then his daughter from Silent Hill 3 as their daughter and stuff like that. And another one from Silent Hill 2, I had like James and Maria living. Is it Maria or Mary? I can't remember which one it is.
I don't know.
I had them living as a couple, and then in the basement, the Pyramid Head lived. He just had a little like sort of man cave in the basement, and it was just hilarious, just watching how these characters just interact within the sort of confines of The Sims and stuff like that. It's like I had one screenshot. I think it was my Facebook profile picture for ages, and it was the Pyramid Head from Silent Hill, Barry Burton from Resident Evil, the Punisher, and I can't remember who the other one was. Might have been like He-Man or someone. All sat in a hot tub together, talking. They were all chatting, and the speech bubble that came out was a football. So it's like these 4 characters talking about football in a hot tub, and I just thought this is the most masculine picture I've ever seen.
Oh man, that is unbelievable.
But
I've never heard anybody go to such depth
no, I
to
played.
create something like that.
I'm not a PC gamer, and I know there's actually a few PC games on my list, but I am not actually a PC gamer. But something like that, I mean, it's like I will just sit and watch it, and just watch how things happen. But yeah, it's things like that. I mean, it's another thing that me and my wife played together as well. In fact, I think one of the first times that me and my wife really bonded on a gaming level as well is when I just bought Metal Gear Solid 2, and I'd sat and played that for about 8 hours straight on like my TV. And I think my mum and dad had gone on holiday, and I was in the living room playing that on the PS2. But she was sat behind me on the couch with a laptop on, playing The Sims Solid for like 8 hours. So it was another thing that we bonded over, that we both really found a mutual enjoyment of, like within gaming. But yeah, other things like that, like just doing things to ruin other people's games as well, which is hilarious. There's been a sort of recurring character in some of my stories on the TMB podcast. This friend I had who thought it was a great idea to invite people over to watch him play games.
Yes.
And one day when he'd been called to have his dinner, and he just left us watching his Sims characters. This like family that he'd made from scratch. Like it was his mum and dad, and then him as a child. And he'd made it from scratch. He'd not cheated. He'd made it so they got jobs, and they had their proper jobs because his dad was a policeman, his mum was a teacher. I think they got proper jobs in those areas and everything. And it really worked hard on this thing. But we were so bored and so annoyed that he'd invited us over just for us to watch him play this game, that when he went out for his dinner, we just sold everything in his house, replaced it all with wooden tables and one barbecue, and deleted all the doors and made his mum and dad just barbecue until the tables caught fire, and then burnt his house down. And then as he came back in the room, his house was just burning to the embers. Because we deleted all the doors so he couldn't get out, but also the firemen couldn't get in. So, as he came back, his house was just sort of a smouldering pile. Both his parents were dead, and his character had just come back from school and discovered this, and he was just a sobbing young boy on the front porch. And then the social services came and took him away. So yeah, just certain things like that, sabotaging other people's games and stuff. Finding creative ways to kill your Sims. I mean, I had a murderer in one of my villages once, just for a laugh. I decided to play one of my characters as a murderer.
Just for a laugh, yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't even a character that I created. She was I created Quagmire from Family Guy. And I don't know if you ever watched Family Guy.
Yes.
He's like the horny one. And yeah, I'd managed to seduce one of the pizza delivery girls as Quagmire, and she'd sort of moved in with him. And then I got bored of her, so I moved her into her own house. And it was just like, what do I do with this character now? She's not one of my characters. She's just a random. So I made her a murderer, and using like mods and cheats and stuff, I made it so she'd sort of invite people over who I didn't particularly like anymore and didn't want in my town anymore, and she'd kill them. Like you could get like guns and stuff. You could like get a mod where you get a gun, you could just kill them and shoot them and kill them. And then she had like a big graveyard in the back of her house where she buried all the bodies. And then because if you have a tomb on your lot, sometimes the ghosts will rise and start haunting the house. So I had the murderer living in a haunted house for a bit. It's just certain things like that. It's a real sandbox, a real playground for you to play in, and I could keep myself occupied for months.
Years, but on that basis.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think I said this originally. Again, I did try and play The Sims, but I realised how in depth it was, and I thought it just when I probably about 2000, was it? Late 90s, 2000 it came out.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, because again, it was just trying to find. Just didn't have the time to put into things. I sort of moved on from that playing the in-depth games by that point. So It's a shame I missed it. I mean, I've got Sims games knocking around on the console, but they're not quite the same.
The consoles ones aren't the same. The handheld ones are really good. Some of them, anyway. Between like Sims busting out the herbs and Sims 2, but they were like story-based games where you'd play as a character and you have to do different objectives and things like that. Sort of like non-violent role-playing games, and they were really good as well. But the PSP version of Sims 2 was really good. But the console ones as a whole were no good.
I can imagine with the great in depth to go with that. But yeah, I mean, just listening to that, mate. I mean, that is fascinating. I'm sure other people were doing exactly the same thing, but that just sounds absolutely brilliant. It really does.
It's a true sandbox if you just sort of have the patience to and have sort of like the know-how to modify it as you need to, and also have the imagination to fill in the blanks. Where you can't get something happening, like when something's not. I mean, it's like this character wasn't by design a murderer. It's something I came up with, and I sort of created like a story for about burying the bodies in the backyard. In reality, it was me clicking the people and killing them off myself, and then me sticking them in the backyard. But I'd sort of created the story in my head that she was a murderer. She was killing the people and burying them in the backyard and stuff. And yeah, just a lot of fun with that game. So much fun.
I'll tell you what we'll do before we go back to your gaming history. The last game on your list, this sort of fits in with what we're talking about, doesn't it? The sort of like the other game on the Switch.
Oh yeah. The last game on my list, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about that one now, because I think it ties in with the other two. We're in this sort of area, aren't we?
Yeah.
And then we can do the other three after we've talked about your next batch of gaming history, I think. So, what would have been your last game on your list anyway? But doesn't make any difference because they're in no particular order. We don't categorise them or anything like that. They're just how they're coming out. But sometimes the conversation dictates it makes sense to talk about another game. So, what's this one? Because again, I've heard of it, but I know nothing about it.
It's another non-violent game. It's one that I have described as basically being my whole life. I've played it on the Switch, but you can get it on. It started off on the PC, and you can get it on like the PS4 or the Xbox. It's on the Xbox Game Pass. It's Stardew Valley, and it's an independent game. It's I think it was made by literally one person, just on his own from scratch. And it's sort of a love letter to Harvest Moon and those kind of things. It's a farming game, but whereas I have never really enjoyed Harvest Moon, I absolutely fell in love with Stardew Valley. It's amazing. It's sort of more like sort of pixel art style, and it made me really fall in love with pixel art games again. Because I mean, like going off on a little bit of a tangent, unlike the Retro Freak and other stuff like. Say you download Streets of Rage 2 on the Xbox 360, I'd always put a filter on the graphics to smooth out the pixels and stuff like that and make them look a bit more HD. Since playing Stardew Valley, I've sort of stopped doing that and I've gone back to pixel style graphics because this properly made me fall in love with pixel art again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just a nice little game. You start off, you create your character, and you start off and you're sort of in a room with your I think it's your granddad who's about to pass away, and he gives you the deed to this farm in this far off sort of country town, and you're sort of in a dead end job and stuff like that. So you pack everything in, move to this town, and you like start off in this rundown barn, and you essentially your job is to get your farm back up on its feet. You've got 2 years to sort of accomplish a certain set of goals. And it's not just farming. You've got an outlying village full of different characters, and
Right.
you're sort of forging relationships with those. And each one of them's got like a different backstory. And I don't know. It just tackles different sort of subjects and different sort of social like bridges that you have to cross and stuff like that.
I understand. I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
There's like one of the characters like deeply depressed, and one of the characters is like in love with one of the others, and you can have him sort of nurture that and help him sort of come out of his shell and woo the girl, or you can choose to woo the girl yourself.
There'll be two depressed people walking around.
But yeah, it's just a nice little game where you work on a farm. You can build your farm. You can get animals, you get crops and stuff. As the seasons progress, your crops will die out, and you've got to get a different amount of crops in and stuff. And it's all about forward planning with that. After a certain amount of time, you'll get a greenhouse where you can grow any crop you like, all year round. You start off like you've got chickens and ducks. You move on to like goats, sheep, pigs, cows. Eventually, you can get stuff. I've never actually got this far, but you can get like dinosaurs, ostriches, and stuff like that. Just all kinds of things living on your farm. It's there's like a whole like separate story about meeting somebody and getting married, and most of the people in the town, apart from the ones that are already married, you can sort of build up a relationship with those and choose to marry them if you want to. Obviously, it's it caters to everybody. So if you're a man who wants to marry a man, you can do. If you're a woman who wants to marry a woman, you can do. It's just wholesome and calm and relaxing, and I've played through the whole thing twice now. I've not done everything, not done 100% of the game, but I've played through like the main story of it twice. Built my farm up, got married, raised kids and stuff like that. And the second time I did it with my wife as well. You can hire people as a farmhand, and they get their own little house on your property, and they can come and help you do all the work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get bogged down with farm work. Your days don't last very long, and you've got to do certain things every day, like feed the animals, water the plants, tend to any walls that have started to crumble and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just, I found it so much easier as a two-player game, and me and my wife were like discussing who should do what jobs and stuff like that on the farm and everything. I mean, I refer to my wife. It's my wife in real life because I had a different game life. I didn't go down too well.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
But I mean, the game's that open-ended that if we decided to, we could have actually married each other in the game as well. But it turns out it's more sort of beneficial to have more people on the farm. So I married outside the farm, and she could have as well if she wanted to. It's just a really nice game, and if you want to, you can sort of go down a mine, and there's monsters to fight and stuff like that, and you can level up like a sort of Zelda style hack and slash RPG. And while you're down there, you can mine for ore and stuff like that, which you can sell or use to build things. They keep adding stuff to the game as well. Like there's different islands. Every so often you'll get an update and a new island will pop up, and there's new characters and new storylines and stuff in that. It's been going now it's got to be going on for 10 years, this game, and it's still they're still pushing new content out and changing things and changing the graphics and how things look, and like updating people's attire and stuff like that. It's just it's one of those games where I kind of always wanted to try it when it was on Steam at first, and never really wanted to pay for it because I didn't like Harvest Moon, or whatever it's called now. Harvest Moon, I can't remember what they call it now. Because that's a whole thing where the developers split off from the publishers, but the publishers own the name of Harvest Moon, and the developers carried on making games under a different name. But that's by the by. Yeah, I never actually got on with those games. I played a few of them. Played the GameCube one. I played one on the PS1 and one on the SNES, and never enjoyed them. So I think I eventually took the plunge when I got the Switch, and I saw it on sale. And it was sort of instant love for this game. It was just everything. I love the music on it. I love like the characters. I love how it looks. There's just nothing I don't just love about this game. Some of the stories, like I mentioned, the one about the guy with depression and stuff, it's like really sort of ham-fisted. It's kind of how you'd expect somebody who doesn't suffer from depression to write about depression.
Yes, that can be really annoying, can't it? Because you got an opportunity there to tackle a pretty sensitive subject.
Yeah, I mean,
you can make
it's something I deal with as well, depression. So it's like something whenever something's not. I mean, everyone deals with it in a different way, and everyone suffers from it in a different way. But
yeah,
when something feels false. That kind of does stick out, and it does do that a bit. It's a character called Shane who he's sort of a down and out, and especially as one of the storylines involves this huge like mega corporation supermarket chain, which is obviously something that's close to my heart. But it's moving into the village and sort of pushing the village shop out of business and stuff. And one of the storylines is that you can shut them down and drive out the mega corporation and stuff. But this character Shane works for them, so it's possible for him to lose his job while through you doing that, and he turns to drink and things like that. And I think his parents had died, and he's got his little sister that he's looking after and everything like that. And he turns to drink, and you find him passed out, and you have to take him to get his stomach pumped and stuff like that. And there's just stuff that he says it's obviously written from the point of view of somebody who doesn't suffer from that kind of thing. I mean, I may be wrong. I don't know the guy who wrote it, but it feels a little bit sort of ham-fisted.
Yeah.
And there's other things like it's a guy that's written it, so all the dialogue from the women sounds a little bit sort of stilted and
yeah, I can imagine how that sounds. Yeah,
but apart from that, it's like one of them is it's a girl who's a bit of a tomboy, and her parents don't understand her, and she's got purple hair, and she's a bit of a goth. And
nothing wrong with that.
Well, no, there isn't. I mean, if there was, I wouldn't be married to the woman I'm married to now in real life, not on Stardew Valley. Although I was married to her on Stardew Valley.
You get your wives confused, mate. That's what it is. You got that many knocking around. Online, get computer game wives. Sorry, I should.
It's alright because she's madly in love with Alistair off Dragon Age Origins, so it's fine if.
Well, he's a bit of a hunk. I can see why. I can see what the appeal is there.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. A lot of the dialogue is kind of forced and weird and a bit janky, but the actual game is so charming and nice and relaxing and time consuming, crucially when you're on a desert island, that I would recommend it to literally anybody. Even if you don't think that games could possibly exist if you're not slaughtering people, just try. I mean, obviously there is the option in this to nip into the mines and kill some monsters, but I challenge you not to fall in love with this game. And it's like you were saying earlier about getting attached to animals, attached to characters in games.
Yeah,
you get so attached to your animals. It's you want to go in because you have to name every single one of them, and then they give birth and stuff. And you know which ones are like children of the others and stuff. I had a whole barn full of sheep called Dolly at one point. But yeah, it's like by the end of it, if anyone did anything to my chicken McNugget, I would have killed them where they stood.
Call it Alfred. Call it Alfred.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I had like Vindaloo, McNugget, Madras, Korma, all the curries.
Yeah.
All the kind of different things. Pigs were all names like sausage and banger and stuff like that. Usually food based. But yeah, it's so easy to get sucked into and so just nice and pleasant and in depth as well that you really ought to give it a go. And it looks and feels retro too. For the people
I'd love to sit down and play it. You've sold it really well. Everybody sells these games really well, and I always sit here thinking I should try and give that a go. But again, it's the whole concept of time. I know what you said there as well, which is quite interesting. It's not so much a farming based game, but a lot of those games are very, very popular. You think about how popular farming simulator games are.
Yeah, it's just one facet of this. It's there's just so much more to do as well.
But, it sounds great. It really does. I just don't think I'm ever going to get around to to playing it, sadly. But you said it really, really well. I mean, I'm no fan of The Sims. I couldn't get into it, but the way you've gone into detail about that, and again, Animal Crossing as well. I'm thinking, I've got an Animal Crossing game on the Wii, so there's no reason why I couldn't.
Yeah, Let's Go to the City. It's quite a good one, that one.
That's the one, yeah. So there's no reason why I couldn't sit down and at least try and play it and see how I get on with that. But then again, the three games you got there, which is halfway through your list, you're gonna. a lot of your time filled on this desert island.
Yeah, a lot of my time filled peacefully as well.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be all
yeah,
sort of zen when I come out of it. Apart
yeah.
from the murdering pizza girl in The Sims 2, it's all.
Well, you might need to do that to break up the tranquility a little bit. Just it's all a bit nicey, and then you can just do something like that and just take the edge off a little bit, and remind you what real life is. It will be like when you return. We'll come back to your games shortly. Let's take in the next part of your gaming history, because I'm aware we've been about an hour and a half so far. So we'll try and get these all in. So we talked about the Amiga last of all.
Yeah.
Where do you go after that?
Well, I mentioned that we weren't allowed to have consoles in the house, really. But we did spend a lot of time. I mean, I mentioned that we'd not particularly got a lot of money to spend. It was like my dad had a messy divorce before him and my mum got together, and I was sort of shielded from it as a kid, but I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know that we were in financial trouble because they kind of did it well, but we were. But we still managed to get 2 holidays a year, but they were like sort of caravanning and camping holidays. And it's like, I remember one place we used to go, it was this beautiful little place in Derbyshire or Staffordshire, I think it was actually, called Wetton. Lovely little village. And I've since quite recently gone on Google Street View actually and had a walk around the place because it's got so many good memories for me. But I remember we used to go there camping for a week and it'd be £3 a night. So we'd get like a week's holiday on like 21 quid.
My kind of holiday.
Yeah, but because we'd spend a lot of time in places like that with no electricity, and would travel to these places as well, and I'd be sat in a car. My mum decided finally it'd be good to get me a Game Boy, an old big house brick DMG grey Game Boy.
As it should be.
Yeah, well, that was the only one that was available at the time. And that was my first actual console. And I remember having like the big sort of, the big light magnifier thing to stick to the back of it, so I could attempt to play it at night. It still didn't work very well.
Yeah, they weren't the best. No.
Yeah, but that was my first actual console, and it's weird because I've never been a Nintendo guy. That my first console was actually Nintendo. But yeah, I think my mum had managed to. It was a birthday present, I think it was, and my mum had managed to sort of find somebody who was getting rid of one because it came with like this big sort of shoulder bag. Like I think it was like Competition Pro shoulder bag case for it, which had the console in and it had a place for the charge, place for a plug. We had like a battery pack that you could charge from the power pack, and that'd plug into the back. And a bunch of games for it as well. I remember having Tetris, which I hated at the time, but it's now it nearly made my list actually. I switched it out for another game, which is later. There was that. There was, I think it was the first. Was it Mario Land on the Game Boy?
Super Mario Land. Yep.
Yeah, there was the first one of those. There was Battletoads, Spider-Man, and Judge Dredd, I believe it was. They were the games that came with it. And I think there was a football game as well, but I was never into football, so I literally never got played. So, I had this and I played the hell out of mostly Judge Dredd, actually. Judge Dredd and Battletoads. I was actually, because, I mean, people cite Battletoads as being one of the hardest games ever. But I don't know if the Game Boy version's easier than the rest, but I could sit and play that start to finish, and I loved every second of it. It was Battletoads in Ragnarok's World, I think it was called on the Game Boy, but it was the exact same as Battle Maniacs. It was like the same level design and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely loved that game. I had my sort of rose-tinted glasses shattered when I tried to play the recent one on the Xbox One, because that's awful.
I've heard that. I know you mentioned it before, but I think quite a few people have said how bad it is.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, back then it was like sort of like I know it was created as like a sort of reaction to Turtles, but it was more like a Bucky O'Hare kind of thing, where it was like sort of spacefaring mutant animals and stuff like that, and it was quite a serious thing in its own little like child-friendly world. The new one on the Xbox is kind of trying to be funny, and it's like a joke every few seconds kind of thing, trying to be sort of tongue-in-cheek and self-deprecating and stuff like that, and it's
fails miserably.
Yeah, there was like one bit at the start where it was like my wife was like, "Choose that one because he's wearing glasses." So we laughed at that one because one of them was wearing sunglasses. I chose him, and then when you first burst into the room with all the enemies, it's like, "Oh my god, it's so and so the leader, so and so the strong one, and so the glasses one." I thought, "Oh, this is actually going to be funny," but no, it quickly wears thin. But yeah, Battletoads and Judge Dredd on the Game Boy. Judge Dredd based on the Stallone film. Really enjoyed those games. I have no idea what happened to my Game Boy. It probably fell foul of my mum cleaning up again, but
ended at the same place those discs did, I expect.
Yeah, same like dump it site somewhere. But yeah, I remember my sister had one as well, and she'd like moved out by that point. My oldest sister, and we used to trade games and stuff. Yeah, it was just I just cannot remember what happened with it. But I've never been into handheld gaming. I know this is weird coming from the Evercade guy, but to that point, I've never really been that much into handheld gaming, so it kind of fell by the wayside, and I still played the Amiga far more. But a couple of years later on, my sister, it was her 18th birthday. She's older than me, but she's my youngest sister.
Yeah.
The one who we teamed up with for the Amiga. It was her 18th birthday, and obviously being the 18th, my family have always sort of not really celebrated 21st, but they have made a thing about the 18th. She wanted a SNES, and like she really, really wanted a SNES, and they finally, mum and dad decided they could afford to get her one. And we went out, and I went out with them because I was so excited about this SNES. And I went out with them, and they bought her the Street Fighter II Turbo package because that's what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Can I get her a game for her birthday as well?" And Mum was like, "They agreed to." And I went and found Lost Vikings because we've got the demo on the Amiga, and we loved it.
Yeah, so, I played the demo on the Amiga, and I thought it was brilliant. So
yeah. So I got this, and I'm like, can I please get her this? Thinking we'd be able to play it together, and it'd be all great, and would live in harmony and everything like that. But it turns out I was very, very rarely allowed to go in a room and play on this SNES. She just wouldn't let me. And my other sister who'd moved out, her boyfriend had a Mega Drive 2, and eventually decided he wasn't interested in it anymore and was going to get rid. And so my mum, well, he'd sort of every so often he'd lend it to me, and I could take it home and play it. And I think one time I took it home from my sister's and his house to play, and I'd got it set up in my bedroom. And my mum's like, "You're giving it back tomorrow, so make sure you take it all down and leave it out for it to pick up." And I came back from school, and my mum's like, "There's a surprise for you." I'm like, "All right." And she's like, "Go in your bedroom." And I went back in my bedroom, and it was set up again on my TV.
Wow.
And it turns out he decided he didn't want it anymore. He'd done my mum like a really good deal on it, and she talked my dad into letting me have it because it was killing me not being able to play with SNES. So my first proper home console was Mega Drive 2, and I remember we had Sonic 1 and 2, Mega Games 1, which had Columns, Super Thunderblade, and Super Hang-On, I believe it was. Mega Games 3, which was Alien Storm. What else was on that one?
I haven't got that one, so I don't know.
I think it was Super Monaco Grand Prix and something else. I can't remember what the other one was. And Arrow Flash, which is a great side-scrolling shooter where you could sort of transform into a robot as you were flying, a bit like Transbot on the Master System.
On the Master System, yeah.
And we had Battle Squadron.
Yes.
World Cup Italia 90. I think that might have been it. But yeah, it came with all those games, and I just couldn't believe my luck. I absolutely loved it. And I had this Mega Drive for so long. And it was like, I was finally part of like this group of friends that I had, and like they all had different games that I really wanted, that I loved playing. Like, I think between three of my friends, one of them had Streets of Rage 1, one had Streets of Rage 2, and one had Streets of Rage 3. So I managed to like borrow all those, play through the Streets of Rage games.
So you got access to a lot of games, and if your mates had them as well.
Yeah, we were always just trading games and stuff, and we had this. It was a market stall in Rotherham called Johnny Joysticks, and it was legendary.
Great.
Yeah, it was absolutely legendary, and you'd sort of. It was like for trading games, but it wasn't like it is now, where you take it and they give you a value, and you get that much off your game. You'd sort of, you take your game and they'd go, that's a £5, that's a £10 or something, and then it was just like £3 to trade it in for a game of equal value. So
Okay.
we'd always be sort of going to Rotherham Centre on a weekend with the games that were finished and sort of trading them in for other games and stuff. And there was this big, like, just about every boy in our year at school had a Mega Drive apart from that one sociopath. So it was just a constant network of like swapping games and stuff, and it was like really, it was awesome.
He might have been a sociopath, but he had a console that you wanted to play on.
It did, until I got a Mega Drive, because but I don't care what the specs of the machines say. I don't care what the general public say, or the general consensus is. I still believe the Mega Drive is better than the SNES. It's just...
I must, yeah. I agree with you on that one. I agree with you on that one.
A lot of people don't, but I will fight people for that.
It's just an absolute classic, and it came out at the right time when I was growing up. So when the Super Nintendo came along, I felt, oh, here come Nintendo trying to play catch up again, and I actually hated the idea that they'd have better games on that system, even though I didn't own a Mega Drive at the time.
Yeah,
but I'd been brought up to,
you
play.
Bad, don't you?
Yeah, playing the Sega games in the arcade. That I grew up playing. If I associated big name games with Sega, then I was more inclined to go with them than I would have been with Nintendo. So over time, it probably evens itself out a little bit. But at the time, definitely, I was definitely a Sega kid, certainly.
I mean, as a sort of adult, I've always said that if you have the means, there's no point being loyal to a brand. All you're doing is limiting your own experiences. But as a kid, I know nowadays it's different. I mean, you ask a kid now if they've got enough money to buy something, and they pull out a big, like, a money clip with about 300 quid in it. But back then we had nothing, and it's like you could have one console and you stuck to that one console, and it's like all of us, we were all Sega kids. I mean, at least for the Mega Drive anyway. I think there was one guy that I knew who had a NES before he had the Mega Drive, and then he moved back onto the N64 afterwards. But just the whole, like, most of the people I knew had got like Master Systems beforehand. A couple of them moved on to Sega Saturns, but most of us moved on to PlayStations after that. But we all had the Mega Drive, and I don't know, it just... Even the sound chip, it's like everyone says, oh, the sound on the SNES was so much better, but that tinny kind of like slap bass sound you get on the Mega Drive, that to me is gaming of that era.
I've listened to some recently, and I'm thinking, wasn't... Yeah, I thought to myself, it doesn't sound great, the sound chips. I mean, some stuff sounds great through it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but
you still can't do it from Sonic 2, for instance.
That's right, but a lot of it is very, you said, very sort of synth.
Yeah,
it's a bit. Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, not my sort of thing, really.
But that, to me, that's what I had, and that's what I loved, and that's what I remember. So
yeah, that's it. Well,
I know you get like the proper like digitized instruments and stuff on the SNES, which are a lot more realistic and stuff, but that's too much for me. I like the kind of almost 8-bit sounding Mega Drive music. It's just a lot better for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had the Mega Drive for what seemed like an eternity, and just finding out games. There's an awesome game on there called Generations Lost, which I know Mark Jody Slasher picked up not long back. I told him he needs to play it. I don't know if he ever has, but that's like a sort of almost kind of Metroidvania type game. It's still set in like levels and stuff, but it's just like unheard of. You don't know anyone who's played it, and I sort of picked it up when I was younger on a whim because I think it was like a $5 in Argos or something. Because again, didn't have much money, and if I ever saw a game like that, I'd just grab it. It's,
Yeah.
I remember getting Dynamite Heady as just like I'd never even heard of it, but I noticed it was like a tenner at Argos or something. I happened to have a tenner birthday money left, so I just bought it, and it's a really good platform game.
It is very good.
But yeah, just it seemed like an eternity I had this Mega Drive before I finally upgraded to a PlayStation, and I've just got so much love for the system, even now. Mega Drive 2, that is, because that's the best version.
No, it's not. Don't start that business again. It's a horrible looking thing. It's horribly generic looking, but the Mega Drive is just greater. I won't. Okay, the music and stuff you can argue, and I think people probably argue if there were probably way too many sports games on it. But I think if when it boils down to it, if you look at the Mega Drive Mini that came out and how many good games were on that, and games that we were surprised to see on there that were released on that compilation, on that mini console.
Yeah,
it's great history to it. And again, like I said, I always associate the big arcade games with Sega, and that's what I want to see on the system. I could do that when I was, computing on the Amiga. I could buy all the big arcade games.
Yeah.
And I didn't felt in some cases on some of the Nintendo consoles you could do that. Some of them you could. I'm not saying that they weren't there, but the Mega Drive for me was the bigger, badder, 16-bit console that I wanted. Then again, I maybe saw not as many people I know had Mega Drives and they had Super. I think probably more people I knew had Super Nintendos, but there were quite a lot of people got into the Mega Drive when it first came out, and at least 2 people got on it pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
When it got officially released, so it was it's just nice being around people playing those games, because I used to read all the magazines, so I could see them on the magazines, but I actually know people playing these games. It's like, wow.
I mean, I was a bit younger, so I didn't really know it when it came out. It was just one of those machines that had sort of always been there for me. But no, it was just nice to finally be part of the crowd and be able to trade games and be able to play games with my friends and stuff. It's just an amazing little machine. And I mean, I've said before, that little At Games Mega Drive I said earlier on, that was like what got me back into retro gaming. We just saw it just randomly on a shelf in game. But got in there, I think it was around the time the first Red Dead Redemption came out. And I'd gone in there to buy that, and we just noticed this little Mega Drive console on the counter. And I think it was actually before it was out. I think they were selling it early for some reason. 15 games built in, and you could stick your own cartridges on it as well. So I grabbed it and took it home, and it just got me right back into retro gaming and stuff. And I went out and I think I bought Mega Games 6, which is 1 and 3 together. And I think I got those 2 and Road Rash 2 from Cash Converters. And then I went on eBay and bought Captain America and the Avengers.
Great game.
Yeah, beautiful game. And it just took me right back. And there probably wouldn't be any of this in this room that I'm sat in now if it wasn't for that little console, that little Mega Drive that got me right back to my childhood and right back into it. So.
It's strange how it happens, doesn't it? You aren't obviously going to be the only person that's happened to, but there may have been people who haven't gamed for years. Because you mentioned you were sort of playing the modern games then. There may have been people who hadn't gamed for years who've had this given to them for Christmas or a present as a bit of a joke or something. I remember the Mega Drive when you were a kid. Here you go, look at this, you can play them all again. Yeah. And it just, if you are a true gamer at heart, regardless of whether that, I know you mentioned it's not the greatest piece of kit in the world, but somebody to sit down and play that for the first time in, I don't know, 15, 20 years, we go, wow, this is brilliant, I remember this. and it just sparks something else. And the fact with that one, you put your own you put the proper cartridges in as well.
Mm.
You know, it's a no-brainer really, and it just awakens something in people to do it. And it was like me. It was like I was walking around Carl Boots, and I never sort of got the concept of. I played the old games off emulation at that time, but then you walk around and think, hang on a second, I can actually buy these. The first retro console I bought was like the conversation we had was, "What have you bought that for?"
Yeah.
No one wants that. Why have you bought that for? It's like, because I've never had one, and now I'm going to buy one for £10 or whatever it was, and I should take it home with me.
That's what it was like with me at first when I first started buying the stuff again. Susie was like, what have you bought that for and stuff like that. But now it's got to the point where she's finding things for me to buy.
Yeah, but it's the same here. It's like, I mean, I always get messages like, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Or
yeah,
are you interested in this? Or is this worth a go? And people get a habit of being drawn into it as well, which is always a good thing.
It's something I've always been blessed with, is the fact that she's always paid attention to my sort of hobbies and what I'm in, my fads and stuff, and nurtured them instead of, I mean, you see some women who see every man as a fixer-upper and try and like get any kind of thing out of that, any kind of interest they've got, you to kind of try and work it out until they're just a baby machine. But my wife's never been like that. She's always nurtured everything that I've been into. And this, I mean, I've gone through plenty of fads in the past, and gaming's always been sort of there for me, but I've never that's never been sort of like my main sort of money sink. So now it is. She's fully on board with it, and she always helps me out. She buys me stuff. You know, she's always finding me like bargains and stuff. Like, I mean, I've been out unsuccessfully hunting for a little mini console this week that she'd found on some kind of bargaining page on Facebook. It's made by My Arcade, which for the guys who make the little miniature arcade games. I got a heavy barrel on not long back. But they've got like it's called the Game Station Wireless, I think it is, and it's just a little mini console with like 300 games built in, but they're all like bespoke games. They're not like actual NES games or anything. And I love stuff like that. You know, like when you get the cheap like orb systems and stuff.
Yeah,
They've all got like games which you can see are clones of other games, but they're a little bit wobbly and a little bit lame, and they've all, you know, different names and stuff, different sprite edits and things like that. It's that kind of thing. But I've been out sort of looking for that this week and couldn't find it in my local B&M. So, and you can't find it anywhere online either. So,
right.
But yeah, she's always finding stuff like that for me.
You've only got to look at your room. I know people can't see it, but they go across your channel, look at your videos, and just see what's behind you to see that there's that understanding there that you could do something like that. You know, I know you've not been, well, you're not probably about a year, isn't it? About a year or so now.
In the house, nearly 2 years. 2 years in October.
The time flies, doesn't it? I mean, when I first spoke to you, you were still living at the other place.
Yeah, in the flat.
And I've seen that room behind you develop as you've been going along. So
yeah, it's something that she's been really good with me with that, actually, because this is like, I mean, it's the attic, and it's a usable space, but it's sort of really hot in summer and really cold in winter. So it's not like we could have used it as a bedroom. But it's the biggest room in the house, and she's allowed me to convert that into my space. And she's been fully happy with that. She's got her own room downstairs, like directly below me in a minute. But because of what's happened over the last year and a half, that's her office. That's where she works. So it's like not really a recreational space for her. But she's been happy enough to let me have this, and for this kind of dream for having this game room to be a factor into when we were actually looking for houses as well. She's been, you know, gracious enough to let me do that, which is, you know, I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, no, it does help. It does help to have somebody who supports and understands and gets interested in what you're doing. And I know a lot of us joke about the fact that, you know, we're always bringing home rubbish, and everyone's saying, the other are saying, "What you bought that for?" It's all part and parcel of what it is. But I think you see over time there's a general thawing to it, and it's now so much why you bought that for. It's like, well, what is it? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself explaining. And that's one of the great joys I get when I come back now from being out to game hunts or whatever. Just come home and I like to just show I'm not throwing money away just by buying plastic rubbish. I think you have to be a bit honest about that at the same time. But just the joy of saying, "Oh, look what I bought today," sort of thing, and she'll go, "Oh yeah, great," and put it down. But that's fine because that makes me laugh, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, fair enough. That's what you're seeing.
Susie's actually started now coming up with things that she would like to see me get as well. It's like she wasn't particularly a gamer when we met, but she has gradually moved on to stuff like she's a massive Elder Scrolls and Dragon Age fan, and anything sort of fantasy RPG that's not too in depth. She's really into. She really loves Animal Crossing and stuff like that. But her dad and her brother, both her brothers actually, were like. I mean, one of us, the youngest brother, was only 6 when we got together. But yeah, her dad and her brother, who's my age, were gamers through and through, all the way through. And I always called her dad the a womble because he'd go out and he'd find a car boot sale and come back with just like boxes full of stuff, or he'd like say if he walked past a skip and there was a TV in it, he'd sort of like look both ways and grab it and run back to the house. And at the bottom of their stairs, which I mean, in their house, theirs was like a really overcrowded house. There were so many people like living there, and because there was like both the parents, her 2 brothers, and her uncle all living in the house, and then me and her brother's girlfriend were there most of the time as well. So it was like a really overcrowded house. She lived in her bedroom was downstairs in what would have been the dining room.
Yeah, and
outside her door, her dad in like the sort of corner area at the bottom of the stairs, he had like all these TVs set up that he'd like fished out of skips or got at car boot sales and stuff, and all kinds of like different systems that he'd got, like tons of like, I don't know, Amstrads and like Commodores and things like that, and like Mega Drives. I think he had a Vectrex stuff behind there and stuff like that, and he'd sit there and play them constantly. So now she keeps saying to me stuff like, you should try and get a Vectrex, which is not easy said than done.
They're not cheap, are they? They're not.
No.
I think Mrs. Bears definitely had her eye on one. She got. I think when she saw a couple of people had them last year, she sort of like, "So you should get one of those." I was like, "What do I want them for?" But I've got no attachment to it. But I think she likes the concept of it. So she'd like one day. But I think because the prices of them now, she's sort of moved on a little bit from that. Yeah.
But I think another one that she wants me to get is an Amstrad. I think it's CPC 464 she wants.
Yes.
She's like really interested in that. Is that the one with the monochrome screen with the overlays?
Not the 464. No. That you'll think that's a Vectrex you're thinking of.
Might be different.
Yeah, the Vectrex has got the monitor with you put the overlay.
I think there was one. The Amstrad. Sorry, the Amstrad one is one that came in 2 models. One had a green screen and one had a colour screen.
Yeah, that's the 464. That's the 464.
Yeah, that's the one that she's after. And she's after the colour screen one.
Yeah, it's the same design as the Spectrum 128.
Yeah,
because that's what they took over making the Sinclair stuff as
right
when Sugar bought them out. But yeah, I've always wanted a 464, and I've actually got one now. I got one earlier this year, which was it late last year? Is it earlier this year or late last year? I cannot remember. Honestly, the last two just blurred into one at the moment. But and Mrs. Bear's picked one up recently with the green screen. It's really strange to try and play a game on the green screen.
Yeah,
I can't understand. I can see why they did it, but also as well. And most anybody listening to this will know about 464s, is that unless you've got an adapter, you've got to buy the monitor to go with it.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one to find monitors and working orders. But
Well, it was same with this Amiga 500 I got here. Not designed to work on a TV, apparently.
unless you have the TV modulator to go with it.
Yeah, which I didn't. It came with the instructions for the TV modulator, and Sean had said it was in the box, but it wasn't.
It's always the same. You buy something off, and there's always something missing out.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I'm not slagging him off because I know he was like super sort of. He couldn't stop apologising for the fact that I had to do work on it and everything like that, and he wanted to pay for it.
We are pulling his leg, aren't we? So
yeah, but I ended up getting a custom made SCART cable, RGB cable for the Amiga, which works like a dream, and the picture quality it's on a 20-inch LCD screen, and the picture quality is amazing. It looks as if I'm running it through at least component.
Yeah. We were lucky enough when we bought our Amiga that my dad bought a monitor as well.
Well, we never actually had the original 500. We had the 600 and the 500 Plus, so they were perfectly fine working with a TV.
They were built in, I think. I think the modulator was actually built into the.
Yeah.
Whereas with the 500, you had this great big plastic bit that stick out the back of your computer.
Yeah.
It's like with the Amiga, you got the modulator. I know we're backtracking on stuff here, but this is quite interesting. So I don't really care. It's my show. The back of the modulator would stick out the back of the computer, so you'd have to pull that forward to create space for you. If you knock it out, you lose the picture. And I don't know, it was with concept of 16-bit computers. You had that stupid design for that, and then on the ST, you had the stupid design of putting the joystick ports underneath the front of the computer.
What?
So when I got my first ST last year, it was like, where the hell's the joystick port? And you realise underneath, it's underneath at the front. It's the stupidest place in the world to stick it. It really is. So, but then again, back though, then you've got that many things you're going to try and hang off it. You're going to find the most easiest way to do it, which is why when they redid the 500 as a 500 Plus and the 600, etc., the TV modulator was built in. So.
I know this is no good for the listening public because they can't see the screen, but
no.
The connector that connects the modulator on, and not the modulator, sorry, it's one of the cables on the Amiga. I don't know if you can see that.
It's like the old monitor cable, isn't it? Yeah.
I can't get it close enough to the camera to show you properly, but that amount, that connector with that amount of pins doesn't exist anymore. So what they've had to do is they've took a connector with more holes and actually sliced it off at the end, so it fits in the port. So it's a full custom job. It's like custom made by some company on took the label off on eBay, but it works an absolute dream. It's really good.
Yeah. Again, because you're trying to play these games in a modern environment, you've got to try and adapt the old technology to fit that purpose. So it is one of them. That was got a good tangent, mate. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it really was a good tangent. That went on for a while.
Good.
So where were we? The Mega Drive?
I don't know. We've done the Mega Drive. Let's talk about the next one along.
Next one along. I mean, it was when I got into high school. I know high school's an American thing, but our school was called a high school for some reason.
When I started high school, the year before, it was a boys' school.
Right.
Because the secondary school I went to had a separate boys' school and girls' school. And the very first year I went to secondary school, which was 87, the ripe old age of 11, nearly 12. I think it was the first time that they put boys and girls in the same school.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, every other school in our area was a comprehensive school, but for some reason mine was a high school. But that's just a different tangent anyway. That's not really important to the story.
Education systems of the 1980s and 90s.
Prior to that, I always played games, and I've talked about them as if they're like the main passion in my life up to this point. But you'd be more likely to find me playing with like some Turtles figures or He-Man figures, because again, back to us being on quite a low income at first. I inherited maybe 300 He-Man figures from my cousin. So I was like super into He-Man figures or wrestling figures.
Were there that many He-Man figures back in the day?
Yeah, well, I say 300 He-Man figures. There was He-Man figures, and I think there were a couple of like She-Ra figures thrown in as well. And then there was like, after they stopped making them, the run of He-Man figures, they sold the molds onto like budget companies who'd make like non-brand wrestling figures. In fact, I think there was actually I think was it NWA wrestling figures? They made
Right,
these
yeah, yeah.
He-Man molds and stuff, so you could get like a Ric Flair figure or whatever.
Were they
But
really made out of those?
yeah,
Because I remember seeing them in the shops when they
yeah.
first came.
But I mean, I don't know if Ric Flair was part of it, but it's just the first old wrestler that came to mind. Like, I don't know, someone like Arn Anderson or somebody.
Yeah.
In the same sort of mold, like the He-Man figures would always have one hand like that to hold the sword and one hand like that. And obviously, I'm showing off to the camera again, and no one can see.
That's
But
right.
you'd get the wrestling figures in the same sort of pose with the same sort of elastic band legs and stuff like that. And I had there were like a few of those thrown in. And then later on, you'd get like, Poundland kind of action figures, and the sell them at Morrison's as well, like sort of like knockoff like He-Man, Conan kind of fantasy style things, or like wrestling, like non-brand wrestling figures, all with the same He-Man style mold. So whereas people were getting like Action Man and stuff like that, and I mean, I got a few Turtles figures, but not many, and Power Rangers and stuff like that, I was getting these 99p figures, which were all He-Man size, and I was just chucking them all in together. So I had like this massive army of He-Man figures. But we're already going on another tangent here. But I'd mostly play because I was wrestling mad at that point. I would mostly play them as my own kind of wrestling league, and I'd like take the He-Man characters and I'd change the names and stuff and make them into wrestlers. And but yeah, you'd more likely find me playing with figures or charging around outside with sticks, pretending they were guns and stuff.
Or waffles. Yeah.
Sorry, that's a throwback that's just completely thrown me. That call back to the very start.
Yeah,
it seemed like weeks ago.
It was.
But yeah, you'd more likely find me doing stuff like that. We would have like monster sessions on the Mega Drives and stuff, but quite often when I was with my friends, we'd be outside playing in the dirt and being boys. And it wasn't until I got into comp when I fell in with a couple of other lads. I mean, we lived in this village called Thurcroft, and like literally there was like the village, and then there was a field full of cows, and then there was a hamlet on the other side of the field, like not even like half a mile away. And there was a kid that lived there, but he didn't go to our school in Thurcroft in junior school because, I don't know, I think his parents were a bit... In fact, it was the kid who invited us over to watch him play games. But I think his parents thought like Thurcroft was a bit rough for him, so they put him in junior school somewhere else. And then we met up in comprehensive school and realised we lived so close to each other. And there was him and his friends from the school that he'd been to were super into games. Like, it's all they did was play like Sega all the time. So I sort of followed suit and got really into gaming through them. And I mean, it was sort of following around this point, around sort of like when I was sort of 12, 13, when my dad finished paying off his debts to his ex-wife. And we suddenly had money again because we weren't, like I said, low income. We weren't low income. My dad had been on a headmaster's wage. And then he'd sort of dropped down, but he was still on a teacher's wage. Mum was doing like full-time childminding. She was getting a decent wage, like both for him in childcare. So there was like hazard pay in that. So when the debts had gone, we sort of started building up cash again. And eventually I managed to get a PlayStation. I think it was around the time when the price cuts had started happening with the PS1. So it wasn't like a full price PS1. But yeah, they actually offered to buy me a PlayStation, which I thought was weird. It wasn't something I'd asked for. A couple of my friends had already got PlayStations by that point. So I hung around with a couple of them who were like the rich kids in the village. One of them, I've talked about this before, one of them had an ice cream company.
Yes, I remember that one, yes.
So yeah, although it was quite funny because like the Christmas beforehand, I'd managed to get my mum and dad to buy me, back when we were still in debt, they bought me Sonic 3D on the Mega Drive. And a couple of my friends had got PlayStations on the same Christmas. But those guys were still jealous of me for having Sonic 3D.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I don't know why, because they'd got PlayStations and they were playing stuff like Tekken 2 and Ridge Racer and stuff. And I was like,
Well,
playing
they can't have been that good, can they? Yeah.
pseudo 3D effort from Sega on really aging hardware. But yeah, that year, I think I must have been about 12, 13. My parents bought me my first PlayStation 1. And I wanted a Saturn. My cousin had a Sega Saturn. I was still Sega is best. Sega will always be best. So I really wanted a Saturn because I've been at his house. I've been playing like Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers, and he had Tomb Raider on the Saturn. And I remember there was an action replay code on the Saturn version of Tomb Raider, which let you, she'd like dual wield the pistols and the Uzis, but she'd only hold one shotgun, obviously, because you need a hand to pump it. There was an action replay code on the Saturn version where you could dual wield the shotguns, and that wasn't on the PlayStation version. So to me, that was the best version, and I really wanted the Saturn. My mum, in all her infinite wisdom and foresight, talked me out of it because all my friends had either got or were getting PlayStations, apart from one guy who was getting the N64.
Was he the same guy that got the SNES?
No, he was the guy who had the NES first, and then he had the Mega Drive, and then after that. So my mum had noticed this and thought, you're not going to be able to swap games if you get the Sega. So she managed to talk me around to getting a PlayStation, and a remarkable foresight for her, because if I'd have got the Saturn, it would died on its arse a few years later.
It would have ended in tears if that had been the case. Yeah, you're swapping games with yourself.
I say remarkable foresight, but just before we got the PlayStation, she then saw an Atari Jaguar on sale for super cheap in like Curry's or something, and decided to start trying to talk me into getting that one instead. But I wish she had now.
Yeah, with hindsight, you say, it would have been useful to have that now.
It was in the cusp of I think the final price drop for the PlayStation was like a year or so later, and it went down to like £99 and then like £69. So I could have probably got one a bit later on and got the Jaguar first and had the Jaguar now. And if I could go back in time and tell my younger self, just get the Jaguar.
Yeah.
Get it and keep it. I know it's crap, but keep it. But yeah, she tried to talk me into getting a Jaguar, but by that point I was fully PlayStation, so ready. And yeah, that Christmas I got a PlayStation, and I remember the bundle I got. It was called the Trilogy of Trilogies bundle. It was in Argos, and it was the PlayStation itself. You got Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Die Hard Trilogy, and Alien Trilogy.
That's a trilogy of trilogies.
Yeah, and then there was 4 other games from a list which you could pick from, which I got: Casper, Destruction Derby, Reloaded, and what's the 4th one? Psychic Force is a fighting game where you fly around. I've mentioned this before because the last boss was called Keith.
Yes.
So yeah, they were the games I got. I got 7 games with it. No memory card, but I got 7 games. I had to wait until the shops opened up after Christmas to spend my Christmas money on a memory card. But yeah, super. It was just like such a super amazing bundle of games. Every game in there. I mean, Psychic Force is a bit janky, but every game was at least playable, to keep me occupied for quite a while. And so I never looked back. PlayStation was where I was at from there on, and it still is now. It's like, I love everything. As I was saying earlier, if you have the means, there's no point limiting yourself. But if I had to, it'd be PlayStation that I'd go for. And yeah, the PS1 just quickly became still my favorite console ever. The library of games for it is immense.
It's an iconic looking console as well, isn't it? That original design. Forget about the PS1 that came out years later, which was the aspirin size, the little tiny one, which is a complete waste of time. The original grey one, it's just. You could probably put that down as maybe one of the most 10 recognisable. I think I said this before. The 10 most recognisable things come out of the 1990s.
Oh yeah,
it would be on there. It would be on there.
It changed gaming because up to that point, it was always seen as for kids. I know I've talked about this in the podcast, but then, you'd get like adverts in magazines now with like adverts for like Wipeout with like a bunch of people who were like, heavily implied they were on pills and stuff like that. And it was like club culture and drug culture and stuff like that. It was sort of, I mean, I know drug culture, I don't condone it, but it was like part of the 90s with young people and stuff. And it was like, I think it was Sarah Cox was in the advert for it, where it sort of showed them sort of as if they were sat on a chair, sort of like on some kind of drug, and no, they'd just been playing Wipeout and stuff like that. It was like edgy and cool. Yeah. And I remember my sister at the time, my sister Helen, the Amiga sister, she was Amiga being Spanish for female friend, actually.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah, my Amiga sister Helen, she was sort of going to nightclubs and stuff, and she was saying that like in the nightclubs there was PlayStations set up in the nightclubs for people to sit and play on. And I don't know, it was just something that was completely unheard of, because up to that point the consoles had been toys, and now they were an actual thing for adults and teenagers.
That's right. It was the maturity of gaming. I think it's probably the best way to describe it, because you could get more mature content on there. Think about again like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, etc. You got certifications. I mean, there's been adult games, but mature content games before. But this was really when all of a sudden gaming opened up beyond just beyond just kid stuff. It was now we're appealing to young adults. It was appealing to people in their 30s, whatever. And as you said about, I mean, I remember seeing them in clubs as well. So it was going out. Just going out beyond the confines of the bedroom and into the big wide world. And the PlayStation's got a lot to be thankful for that.
Really has. It's the most. I mean, I say like a lot of my retro gaming stuff comes from that little knockoff Mega Drive, but this sort of got me back into games. The PS1 sort of pushed me forward and got me back into wanting to play games all the time. And I mean, I eventually got it chipped and had a couple of 100 games for it and stuff like that. And I don't know. It's I was living and breathing video games, and I bet my mum kind of like kicks herself for that actually when it comes to my exam times.
Yeah, should have bought you that Jaguar. You've been playing any games at all whatsoever.
Play Alien vs Predator and then pack it away in a box. But no, that Christmas morning, sitting and playing Alien Trilogy, not being able to save my game, and just trying to get as far as I could without saving, is always going to be in my memory. Just a really good experience.
It is a great system, there's no doubt about it. And it launched a brand, it launched a lifestyle, it launched something completely different. It took gaming in a different direction. I don't think you'd ever probably sit down and find people playing N64s in clubs. If the PlayStation would have not come along, gaming probably would have stayed where it was for a while longer. I'm not saying it would never have happened, but sooner or later somebody would have come along and done something a bit different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously now you get clubs that are based solely around gaming, like Arcade Club and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I can't. I mean, I've never heard of it happening. I suppose it probably did, like having N64s in clubs and things, but it wouldn't have happened without the PlayStation, which wouldn't have in turn happened without Nintendo. So I guess it's Nintendo to thank, really.
Yeah.
If they'd not had the little partnership with Sony, the PlayStation would have never come about.
It's very true. There's a lot of parallels you can draw, which could have or gone in one direction or the other. It's really interesting. We'll come back to you, do a brief overview of your gaming history to finish, because I'm just aware of how long we've been going and we've still got quite a bit to get through. Not that I want to hurry you through it, Pete, but because
I'm very conscious of the 3 hour sort of.
No, well, that's fine. If it goes 3 hours, it goes 3 hours. I don't like to rush people, especially when they're talking passionately about something. That's one of the great things about doing this, is to let people speak and talk about what they want to try, get across, and their experiences, which is why people enjoy listening to it. So let's go back to your gaming list then.
Okay.
And obviously we've done 1, 2, and 6 off your list. So whichever ones you want to do them in whichever order you want to do them in, take us through your next one.
I'll probably go through my next ones in order of what's on my list. So
Okay.
the next one is actually it's another PC game. So I'm not a PC gamer, but it is available on consoles. But I've had it on PC since I had it on early access for some reason. I got it super cheap on early access, and I've only really just started to play it now.
Hmm.
If you cast your mind back to when I was on the first sort of pilot of this, and I mentioned a game called Munchkin, which is a 2D fighter, where you could sort of download and import characters from any other game, sort of thing.
Yeah, that
And
was what was I say? SpongeBob SquarePants against somebody, wasn't it? I can't remember what
yeah,
it
yeah.
was now.
But I said that I used to do that, and I used to sit and watch fights, and I'd set up tournaments and stuff and everything. I've recently got into a wrestling game called Fire Pro Wrestling World, and it's the latest one in a long series of Japanese wrestling games. And I got this on Steam on early access a few years ago for a couple of quid, and sort of never really touched it. But it's sort of like it's not licensed, but later on after the release, they sort of teamed up with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom Wrestling in Japan, and brought in a load of like licensed Japanese wrestlers. And obviously they're not all Japanese because a lot of the British guys and American guys go over there as well. So you've got people like I know you're not really into the modern kind of pro wrestling and stuff, but some of my favourites like Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Marty Scurll, a lot of the British, a lot of the sort of the British scene like Will Ospreay, Marty Scurll, what's he called now? I don't know. I really like the guy, but I've completely forgotten his name. But I think it's Zach something. Yeah, they're all sort of in this game as like actual wrestlers now as well. But it's like the graphics are sort of like 2D. They're sort of made up like the sprites were from Die Hard Trilogy, where there'd be 2D sprites, but each sort of segment of the body is a different sprite, and then move around independently. So you could sort of move them around on a 3D plane easily enough.
Right.
But there's also a character creator on there, and it's a really robust character creator where you can sort of edit each different segment of the body individually and upload your own images to it. And there's like a huge sort of consumer base on that where you can sort of download characters from what people have made, like user content. And it's sort of the same sort of thing for me. It's like now I can go on there. Sent you the screenshot the other night of the TMB arena that I've made.
That's right. I was very impressed with that.
It's the TM. I call it Tuesday Night Brawl. It's my wrestling, obviously TMB Tuesday Night Brawl. It's my wrestling promotion I've like made up, and I've sort of cherry picking wrestlers from other people who I would sign if I was a wrestling promoter. And I'm downloading these user created ones, which are so perfectly made, because you can even animate your own special moves and stuff. So like I've got people from all like whether they're living or dead from all different eras of wrestling all like together in one promotion. You can have women versus men, which is something you can't do in like the WWE games. And I'm just like sort of downloading these things, and I'm making tournaments and stuff and watching them fight. And it's like they do things in these games like what you don't see in the WWE games. Like they'll go in, like they'll cut to the center of the ring and they'll do the slaps on the chest, and they'll take it in turns slapping on the chest.
Yeah.
And like every so often, like they'd like the sort of one would slap and the other one would sell, then he'd slap back and that one would sell. Then every so often, the one would slap and the other one would stand rigid, and then he'd slap them back and they'd fall on the floor, sort of thing. Like you'd see like proper like ring psychology, and just stuff like authentic taunts and things like that. It's like you get Ric Flair doing his woo taunt and everything. It's just amazing what people can squeeze out of this like relatively simple thing. When I first got it on early access, it was literally just a game engine with a bunch of like hastily created, not real wrestlers in.
Random generic stuff.
Yeah, obviously, like Japanese. It's like Japanese created wrestlers with names that they think American wrestlers would have. I think one of them was called Karts Rowdy. Like karts as in Mario Karts.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
And yeah, it's just evolved into this like hugely like New Japan Pro Wrestling licensed. It's got all their belts and stuff, and now you can create your own belts. So people are creating like photorealistic WWE belts and stuff. And it's like I got like my first tournament I had on there the other night, and I sat and watched them wrestle for the World Championship belt, and the tournament was actually won by a female wrestler, which I would love for that to happen in real life. I think the last fight in the tournament was like Chris Jericho versus I don't know if you know of her. She's called Asuka. She's a Japanese wrestler. Who's
yes, I've heard of it. Yes,
yeah, and it was like a real like edge of your seat kind of match to watch, even though it's these two fights doing the moves and stuff. And watching like Jericho like get her in the walls of Jericho, and then she kicks out of it, gets him in the Asuka lock and stuff, and then he finally taps and she wins and everything.
I can see why you're taking this with you.
Yeah, it was better than anything I'd seen on WWE TV for the last few years. And yeah, I could sit and watch this. This would be my TV while I was there. It wouldn't so much be something I'd sit and play. I'd download these like dream rosters, sit in and watch them, and it's like, I don't know, like reuniting the Bullet Club and things like that, like getting Finn Balor and AJ Styles and reuniting them all up with like the old Bullet Club from the Japan circuit and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like Bullet Club versus New World Order and things like that, just absolute dream matches and things. It's really captured my imagination, and for the same reason as that Munchkin game did so long ago. Because now I can like just sit and watch these dream matches, and even today I've been playing it. And I've introduced Zangief from Street Fighter as my latest little sign into my roster. And he does all the like taunts and the laughs and everything, and he does his spinning pile driver and all that kind of thing.
Oh God, Zangief, yeah.
It's just
yeah, not the greatest Street Fighter character ever.
No, but he's a pro wrestler, isn't he? And he's there with other pro wrestlers and stuff. And I plan on.
That's where he should have done that first. He took the wrong career path.
Well, Capcom did Saturday Night Slam Masters, and it had Mike Haggerin from Final Fight.
Yeah,
I'm surprised they didn't put Zangief in it, but I do plan on making like a stable of video game wrestlers in there, getting like Hager and I'm trying to think who else.
Hubert. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank now, but like other wrestlers from fighting games, just people like King from Tekken. What's he called? Is he Lion or something from Virtua Fighter?
Yeah,
just getting them all in like a stable of video game wrestlers and that.
Yeah, you just want to pull decent fighters from fighting at the double dragon, being pulled two in from Double Dragon, something like that.
What were they called? Bobo or something, wasn't it? From Double Dragon?
Oh, God, I don't know.
I know there was like Hugo and that from Final Fight, and then there was, I think it was called Abigail in Streets of Rage. I might be wrong. But yeah, they just it's just fan service for me. It's like playing with action figures.
Death No one's beating him, are they? But again, these games with the facility to download the stuff other people have made and the ability to create your own as accurate as you can do, it's just, again, I can see why you're taking it with you.
It's like playing with action figures. It's like, but watching the action figures do it themselves, it's like, like, I don't know, like when I was playing with figures, I used to like, when I was little, I had a thing where I was a bit OCD about it, so like I'd only play like with Kenner action figures with other Kenner action figures. I'd only play like Bandai figures with other Bandai figures. But like, I would have Jurassic Park meets Aliens, or I'd have like the Turtles meet the Toxic Crusaders and stuff like that. And it's just like doing that. It's like, I had some wrestling figures, but they were mostly WWF ones. And a friend of mine had a couple of WCW ones, and he had like Sting and that. And we'd all like take them to each other's houses and have like the Undertaker versus Sting and things like that, which you wouldn't have seen back then. And it's the same sort of thing I can do on that now. It's like, if I want, I can have like Seth Rollins versus Kenny Omega, which is like a dream sort of matchup.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just very entertaining to me just to sit and watch it. And not only that, to play it as well, I could while away the hours on that quite easily.
Yeah. No, I like the choice. I think it's good. I was sent to Fire Pro Wrestling game the other week, so on PlayStation
They've been going
4,
for a long time.
I've never played one, so I'm looking forward to settling down and playing that one.
Is that what you say? What system do you say it was on?
PlayStation 4.
Oh, that'll be the same game though.
Is it the same one?
Fire Pro Wrestling World.
If I can try and spin around without knocking everything over. So again, people aren't going to be able to see. Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same game.
Pro Wrestling World. Yeah, there, yeah. You can see it. Nobody else can, but there it is. it is on one of my pickups videos recently. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, that's it. But yeah, I got sent that by Retro Ram 88. So.
Oh, Liam.
Yeah.
I only just realised that he was Retro Ram. Actually, he's someone we've followed each other on Instagram for ages, and he always likes and comments my posts. And I just knew him as Liam Martin off that. And I didn't actually realise it was Retro Ram until the other day. He commented on something and he changed his icon on Instagram to Retro Ram, and I was like, "Oh Jesus, that's him."
No, pleasure meeting him a couple of months back. Nice, very nice.
He's a good guy. He's really supportive.
Yeah, he sent Mrs. Bear, sent us a mass system to see if we could repair it, and just threw a load of other stuff in there as well, which was completely unexpected, including a sealed 2600 game as well.
Ooh, sealed. Which one?
Yeah, sealed. Clacks. Because you know my obsession with clacks.
Yeah.
I'm the only person who's got an obsession with clacks, but yes, I'm not going to get there. But yeah, it's a slight tear in the seal at the back. To be careful with it, but yeah, it's completely sealed. So it was absolutely brilliant to get that. Okay, let's move on to your penultimate game from your 6 choices. We've spoken about. I know we've spoken about this one before previously.
Yeah.
And some people said that it's on this particular list, and other people put it on the other list.
It's a Mrs. Bear favourite, isn't it?
It was a Mrs. Bear favourite, although she played it on the PlayStation 3. I'm not sure there's a difference between the two or not. I don't know, but she did lose an awful lot of time on this one.
I've chosen the Xbox 360 version just because that's how I've consumed it mostly in the past. But I'm talking Fallout 3, specifically the Game of the Year edition, just to get a bit more extra content out of it. I said I've not picked games because they were my favourites, but Fallout 3 I will cite as my favourite game of all time.
Really?
I just love I love the aesthetic of it. I love the music. I just love the world, the way our different characters act and react in different areas and stuff like that. And it's one of those games where it's like when you first play it, it's daunting and it's hyper violent and a bit sort of stressful at times when you're at a low level. But it's become a comfort game for me because I've played it that much. And I was torn between this one and Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4.
Okay,
for the same reason, because they're virtually the same game, just in a different setting. And it's for the same reason. They're both just comfort games for me because I know exactly what I'm doing when I do it. I can just sit back and play them and switch my mind off and just enjoy the ride. And Fallout 3 though just pipped it because it is my favorite game of all time. Just firing up a little radio station, listening to some 1950s sort of crooner music, and just wandering around the wasteland, picking up quests and doing things, upgrading my character and everything. It's just mind off. I just do it. I enjoy every second of it, no matter how many times I play this game, and can while away the hours. It's crucial.
Yeah.
But
I've sat there and watched Claire play it, and it's like, not my game at all in the slightest, because I'm much more. I hate to say it, but I'm much more of a linear game player. Really, I don't mind the chat. You can go off track and whatever or off, but exploring these vast wastelands and collecting this and picking that up, and it's not my thing at all, really. But she's got really into it. It's
I mean, I know there's Fallout New Vegas and there's Fallout 4, but to me, neither of them have really hit the same heights as Fallout 3. I don't know. It's just the world. I love how the map's set out. I love how it all looks. I think New Vegas and Fallout 4 were a bit too colourful for me, if that's understandable at all.
I think that's the reason why Claire didn't like New Vegas, because it didn't have the same feel to Fallout 3.
Didn't have sort of the green tint to it.
Yeah, that whole storyline behind it. Now, Pete on a retro tip, he put on one of his 6 games, New Vegas on his 6 games. So
I always thought 3 was better, and telling the truth, I nearly didn't buy this as well. I'd seen that it was sort of similar to Oblivion when it was coming out, but they've got this like targeting system, this VATS thing where you can like pause the game, target a certain part of the body of an enemy, and it's like a roll of the dice thing, whether you hit or not, and stuff. Like, it's got proper like dice rolling mechanics in the background, like a proper role playing game. And to me, that just sounded like it was a little bit too in depth for me. So I almost didn't buy it. But I was out. I remember I was out at this game shop we used to have in Sheffield called Castle Games. Got closed down by the police for this very reason. But I was in there. I was looking. I was nearly picked up a copy of Stubbs the Zombie. I can remember the game I was looking at was Stubbs the Zombie, which I wish I had done now, because that's skyrocketed in price.
Yes, it's incredibly expensive, that
one. But like the guy at the counter was like, "Hey, kid," like, yeah, he's like, "You want to buy some Fallout?" And it was like a week before it had come out, and it was like a sort of shady kind of under the counter deal. He's like, "You want to buy Fallout?" And then I was sort of like,
trying to sell you some drugs or something.
Yeah. And I was I'd not been interested in it, but he showed me under the counter and he got this box of Fallout 3s, and I'm like, maybe I do want to buy that. So he was like, yeah, I've got the lunchbox version, like the one that came in the metal lunchbox, and he's like, do you want that? It's only like £100 and whatever pound. And I'm like, no chance.
Only 100 and something, yes.
Yeah, but I bought the original and I took it home and put it on and immediately just fell in love with it. And it was like a week before it actually came out. So when it did come out, a couple of my friends had picked it up. I was like, yeah, do this, do that. It's such an amazing game. And I think that little bit of time I had to it with just me and this game, like a little bit of time alone with it, really, that's helped cement it as one of my favorite games as well. But I kicked myself for not getting the lunchbox because it became one of my most wanted gaming items. But I did, the end of last year, somebody gave me one for free, so I do now have the lunchbox upon my. I've got my head in the way, but up on top of there's like a sort of Fallout shrine.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got like the lunchbox. I've got Fallout Monopoly up there and stuff. I've got the Pip-Boy, the ARM thing, the ARM computer that they wear. From Fallout 4 up there, and I'd never played a Fallout game up till Fallout 3, and I've gone back and tried to play the old ones and never been into them. But yeah, Fallout 3 just became a firm favourite of mine, and I've obviously picked up the Game of the Year edition because I can just wheedle about 30 extra hours out of it. But it's one of those games I've played through it so many times. Every year or so I go back to it and play through it again, and I absolutely love it. It never gets old.
A lot of people do that. They go back and play over and over again, or play it, come back 18 months later and play it again, and then put it down and pick it up 12 months later. You get games like that, and you'll always do it. Again, good choice, that one. It's one of these games which people either enjoy or they don't. And we've had all sorts of different opinions on previous episodes about this series. And again, I think from what I understand with the Fallout is you have a favourite of the games that are there. So yours is different to Pete Armour's. It's slightly different to Claire's choice and what she would have. She's played 4. She thinks 4's all right, but not quite as good as 3.
No, 4's a bit toned down.
Yeah.
New Vegas is more hardcore than 3, but 4 was like really toned down after that. So no, 3 was just my favourite, and it's just sort of the right level for me. And my wife, who's like super into Oblivion and Skyrim and stuff, she couldn't do Fallout because of the shooting, so she's not really into it either. But I don't know. It just triggered with me, and I absolutely loved it.
Right, last game on your choice of 6 list.
This one, it's another kind of non-violent game, and I ummed and ahed between this and Tetris for a while.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, just a mindless puzzle game that I can just sit and play forever. It'd be the perfect thing to while it down. And I also kind of, I was thinking of this one called Magical Drop 2 on the SNES, which is one that I've played on the Evercade again. And I liked it that much, I bought it on the SNES as well. But I eventually settled on Buster Move 2. I've put the arcade version, if I can have an arcade cabinet on this island.
Well, you can do. You can do. I've not limited it to anything. And we had this discussion, didn't we, before we started in the pilot? So
yeah,
anything you want.
But I've actually come to think of it, I think I'd probably settle more for the PlayStation version because you can just have an endless mode on that where you can just play forever. And it's just I like a puzzle game to just sit and, if I'm on a bus or something, to just sit and just play with no real end game, nothing to take in. I can just switch my mind off and play it. And I tend to like these ones best, where you've got the ball at the bottom and you're shooting them up into the group at the top of the screen. Magical Drop is a bit like that, but you have to sort of take them from the top and then put them back up to the top in a different pattern sort of thing to make the connections. I much prefer the ones where it's just like you Buster Move types where you've got the arrow at the bottom and you're firing them up in different angles and stuff. And why choose a Buster Move clone when you can just have Buster Move? So Buster Move 2 I think is the one I've played the most. I mean, I've played a lot of Super Buster Move on the PS2 as well, and I've played a fair bit of the Wii version as well of Buster Move. But Buster Move 2 is one that I've actually played through. I played it through the arcade mode at Arcade Club, and I think I did it in about 3 or 4 credits. So it's something I could actually sit and play on a real arcade machine and not spend too much money on. But like I said, the endless mode on the PS1, I believe it's on that version. I could just sit and play for hours and hours and hours just without thinking too much and never get bored of it.
There can't have been many places this didn't end up being on this game. I mean, if you type it into Google, it'll take you to a version of it.
Yeah,
it's so readily available, and it's so simple, and that's what I like about it. I can see why you got a difficult choice there between this one and Tetris, because it's difficult to. I think I would agree with you that you wouldn't have taken Tetris. I like Tetris. I again, like you, I didn't see the appeal of it to start with. But when you actually sit down and play something properly, you go, actually, this is pretty good. But I think for the colour and the fact that honestly, any version of like Bubble Shooter I can get my hands on, I will happily play. So for me, that appeals to me a bit more. So I would probably choose this game like you did over Tetris.
Had I chosen Tetris, I probably would have chosen Tetris DS above the rest of them, which was the one which was like based around different Nintendo properties, like you'd have Mario levels and Zelda levels. It still just played like Tetris, but you'd have different things going on in the background.
Yeah,
and that's the version that I really, really love of Tetris. Like I said, I kicked around so many ideas for different puzzle games. Like my wife suggested Mean Bean Machine, but I used to play that a lot as a kid. But playing it as an adult now, I can't actually remember how to do it, how to work it, so I could get like combinations and stuff. And it's the same with columns as well. I used to play tons of that when I was younger, and now I can't remember how you do it.
I like puzzle games. I really do. I'd certainly probably take one with me if I had this thing thrown at me instead, rather than me throwing it at other people.
I even nearly went for solitaire.
Well, I can understand that, because I've spent many a happy hour playing solitaire.
I've seen play it for hours on my phone, and but no, I think Buster Move 2 is probably my favourite puzzle game of all time, and it would be the perfect thing to just while down the hours and pass time until my hopefully inevitable rescue.
Yeah, well, eventually, I think we'd probably arrange to sort something out from that point of view.
But if you've got a busted move arcade cabinet, why would you want to be rescued?
Well, exactly. Well, you probably, break it down and try and float away on a raft or something,
Yeah.
Well, a Buster Move 2 raft, and that would be something to watch, wouldn't it?
There's some kind of like Rainbow Island Liquid Kids kind of connection there, but I can't think what it is.
So those are your 6 games. So we had Animal Crossing New Horizons, we had The Sims 2, Fire Pro Wrestling World, Fallout 3 Game of the Year edition, Buster Move 2, which we just finished talking about, and Stardew Valley. So that's, again, the concept of being stuck in a desert island. There are a lot of games in there for that, but I also like the fact that you've taken Fire Pro Wrestling to sit there and watch it. And create your own television programs, which would be fascinating. We've still got 2 games to talk about, which is the one which we call the second chance game, and then the one you really hate at the end. Before we get to those 2, when we spoke at the beginning before we started recording this, we obviously got your gaming history at a certain point. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you want to add to that gaming history before we get to those 2 games or not? Because I know you said at that point there your interest in retro gaming was, to coin a phrase, a well-known channel revived.
Yeah. I don't know. It's there was like a gap after the PS1 where I kind of didn't play games for a long time. Because I kind of fell in with music. I got heavily into music, particularly into punk rock and ska and reggae. And I picked up a guitar, much to my dad's delight, because my dad played guitar as well. And I picked up guitar and started playing that, and I got myself into bands, and music became sort of my life for a couple of years. Got into a fairly decent punk band when I was in high school, and we sort of played various parts around the country and stuff, and sort of at one point looked as if we were actually going to sort of, as much as a sort of garage band, punk rock band can do, we looked as if we were sort of going to do that. By which I mean signing to like a minor label and still having to work on when we weren't touring. But
the life of touring, yeah.
We never got as far as touring, unfortunately. I left the band because I was having a sort of a disagreement with the singer, because every time we had a practice, he'd want to bring new songs into it, whereas I was under the opinion that we should perfect the songs we had, get them recorded, and then move on to new stuff. Whereas he was writing new songs every week, sort of thing. And we weren't getting the chance to actually expose these songs to a crowd. But by the by, I sort of stopped gaming throughout that time. And it wasn't until a few years later, my mum was like, I think I was about 18, 19 maybe. Probably 18. My mum for Christmas one year, she was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I had no idea. And then she was like, "Well, do you want a DVD player?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll have a DVD player." And at the time, the cheapest DVD player on the market was the PlayStation 2. So,
yes, of course, that'd be right at the time.
So I ended up getting a PS2. I wasn't really interested in games at the time. As the sole purpose of being a DVD player, really. And I remember the first DVDs I bought were Demolition Man and Transformers the movie. And no, there were 3. Demolition Man, Transformers the movie. I'm talking the 80s one.
Oh, right, the cartoon.
Yeah, the one, yeah. And Batman, 1989. They were my 3 first DVDs. But I sort of gradually after that, I left my band, and they carried on for a bit without me. And I sort of fell more into gaming after that again, and the PS2 properly kickstarted me into where I am now, which is, it's my life. So it was after the PS2. I'd got a job. I could start to spend more on games instead of having to trade everything in. I remember I picked up an N64 because my friend who had the N64, he went on to university, moved to Leeds. So the ones of us that were left behind, we didn't have the sort of N64 get-togethers that we once had, where we'd sit around and play Mario Kart and Perfect Dark and Smash Bros. So I went and picked up an N64 from GameStation for £16.
£16 whole pounds. Wow.
16 whole pounds, yeah. I got Perfect Dark boxed for £5. I still got the box. It's up on the top of my shelves. You can't really make it out on this video feed, but it's my only boxed N64 game. Yeah, and I had the sort of spare money to do that, and I remember when the Pokemon Coliseum came out on the GameCube, they brought out a bundle with that with a black GameCube. I got a paycheck from work. I'd not been working there long, and I just went into a shop and bought that, and it was the first time I've been able to just do that, just buy my own console. So I was doing more of that, getting like a little collection of consoles up in my bedroom. I picked up a Dreamcast for the ripe old sum of £21 from GameStation again.
People won't believe us that these things used to cost that much years ago. New collectors or people looking to get into collecting a certain system. Yeah, they did cost that little because people didn't want them. Unbelievable. Yeah. Everybody wants one now, don't they? But just sort of gradually just started playing more games and just building up a little collection of consoles and stuff. And eventually I moved in with my then girlfriend. And I think one Valentine's Day, the first Valentine's Day we had together, I bought her a SNES because she'd been talking about how much she wanted to play Mario. And that's when I knew it was meant to be, because I bought her the SNES and she was happy about it. Oh, there you go. So.
But yeah, one Valentine's Day she bought me an Xbox, original Xbox. I know you don't like the two letters.
No.
And at that time I was waiting for the PlayStation 3, and it must have been 3 months after I got the original Xbox. They finally announced the price of the PS3, which was £625, I think it was.
Was it as much as that?
And that might have been dollars. It might have been something like £550 or something like that. So I said no to that, and I got my Xbox 360. And just gradually just built up a collection from there. I ended up getting a PS3 for free with a 2-year contract from I think it was Telewest for my internet. So I just gradually just moved on to where I am now, just gathering things up and
building a collection.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was collecting until I started this channel. Really, until just before I started this channel, it's a couple of years back. I just suddenly looked around and thought, "Oh God, I collect consoles and games."
How did that happen? Yeah. But I can't actually believe at one point before I constructed the room I'm sitting in now, which regular viewers in my videos will know that it's the smallest room I've got. But I was desperately trying to think the other day about where everything was before I put this room together.
Yeah,
because when we redesigned it, we turned it into an office stroke, my crap on the walls. And I was just trying to think, where was everything else before it went on the walls? I can't remember for the life of me where it all was. So it's strange. And then you put everything together. You think, I want to put this up here, and then I want to do this down here and get all the consoles out. And then before you realise it, you've actually, hang on, where's all this stuff come from?
Yeah.
When did I start amassing all this?
Living in the flat, I did fell into the trap of running out of space and having to famously get rid of all the boxes from my games.
Yes, that's true. Because you are known for your loose games, aren't you?
Yeah, it wasn't a conscious. Well, it was a conscious decision, but it wasn't one that I took lightly. I'd got like a couple of hundred PS2 games, I'd say about 50 Xbox games, and about 80 Gamecube games up on my shelves in like just a spare room in the flat, and it was all kinds of other things in the spare room, and it was primarily a board game room as well, for playing the board games in. And obviously board games don't come in little tiny CD cases, do they? So they take up a lot of space. No. And not only that, but I had loads of PS1 games and stuff and Mega Drive games and things, and I had to just make the conscious decision that I needed to do this to save space. We'd already done it with the DVDs because we had a whole wall of DVDs in the living room, and we'd just decided one day we need this space for other things. So I had to bite the bullet and do it, and I tried to conserve what I could, which are the games that I knew were worth a lot now, like the Castlevanias, the Punisher on the Mega Drive and stuff like that. But there were things I got rid of which I had no idea how much they were actually worth. Which I do kick myself about it now, and I wish I'd not had to do that. But if I started keeping things in, getting boxed things now and displaying them, I would have to rebuy my whole collection, because that's just the way my brain works. It's all or nothing. But I am moving forward. I know not a lot of people care about the modern stuff, but everything that I get from now on, like from the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, going forward, and Evercade and Switch, they're all staying in cases. I'm going to make sure I don't fall into that trap again.
Yeah, you can do it with certain parts of your collection. There's no doubt about that. I think the thing is we all know, being collectors and gamers, I mean, I differentiate between the two. You reach a certain point where you've got to make decisions, and I'm at that point now. People know that, so I don't talk about anything else. But I'm at that point now, or I've been at that point for quite some time. Just sort of reached critical point here. I mean, you can't see this. Well, people can't see this. Watch this. I'm just turning around and just showing Pete what's behind me there. That's like all stuff I've picked up over the last 6-8 months, which hasn't got anywhere to go.
Yeah, and Nave's in the same boat as well.
There's all that to sort out. Yeah, that's got somewhere to go. So it is one of those. So you have to make sometimes difficult decisions, and I think the decision you made there was a tough decision to make.
Yeah,
I think a lot of us. I know I would have a lot of problem with that. I even considered it a few months ago about doing the same sort of thing that you did with just having the discs in giant wallets. But the problem was I still wanted to keep hold of the boxes, the manuals, and the covers.
You have an attic as well, though, don't you?
I'll go a loft, yeah. I'll go a loft.
Yeah.
But at the moment, that's full of rubbish as well. But I need to sort that out.
But the boxes could go up there, and you could have the games with you.
Well, I've got all the silica gel and everything, so I can put them in containers, put a few packs of those in to stop the damp getting in. Because that's what I want to do is keep them and then find out the manuals and the covers have gone mouldy. Yeah. So at the same time, it would make my life a lot easier to put everything in wallets, but at the same time, I don't want to get rid of the other stuff as well, because I need that, because I want it to be complete. Yeah, I've got to try and...
I've always said that if I like win the lottery or something and end up in a big house and I've got like a Last Gamer-esque game room, I would, instead of rebuying my whole collection again, I would go down the CEX route and just buy a load of blank cases and print out the sleeves myself and have them on display again. But as of now, they're fine in wallets, I think.
Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, a happy byproduct of it is the fact that I can collect for cheaper than anybody else. Because a lot of the time the discs are like half the price of the full sets.
That's right, and again, it's if you're trying to do something on the budget, and again, a lot of us do have budgets to work in. Some people don't, but a lot of us do. And anybody who wants to start collecting stuff like that, it's a good way of doing it. I mean, it all depends on what you want, because there is absolutely no need to collect all this stuff because of emulation. Emulation exists for that purpose. And I know when I first got all that, I thought, wow, I don't need to buy any of these old consoles. I can get all this stuff on. I've got all this stuff on disc now. I've got all the NES games, I've got all the Mega Drive games, the Master System games, the Super Nintendo games. I don't need to get all this stuff.
Well, that's kind of the boat I'm in now, because I've got everything loaded onto my Retro Freak. I've got like full sets of like Master System, Mega Drive, SNES, Game Boy Advance, PC Engine, all that kind of thing. I've got full sets of everything on my Retro Freak. So I've got to the point now where I've kind of got the stuff I want on disc. So even on my PlayStation Classic, I've got like not full sets, but I've got a lot of games downloaded on my PlayStation Classic. I know I don't own them. I still have them on my list because I use my list to randomly select games to play. But I know I don't own them. But it sort of hit my sort of frame of mind as to like why spend like 70, 80 quid on a certain game to have it on a disc when I can play it for free, sort of thing. Which is why I'm moving more onto buying systems. Trying to psych myself up into buying a CD32. But
they're not cheap, are they?
no, they're not. But I'd rather do that now. I'd rather sort of become what people like to refer to themselves as a emulation enthusiast. I believe that's what Andy Kraut calls himself.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't see anything wrong with that. I honestly, I don't. People collect in different ways. Some people will collect for systems, and they will want the absolute cleanest of the clean, the no indents, no markings, no nothing at all on it. And some of us are just happy to have the box with the manual. You know, it's and then, as you said, you're happy just emulating the stuff and getting hold of something that interests you. And if you want to buy that, they'll do it that way. But otherwise, if I want to play an old game from years ago rather than spend 40, 50 quid on a box copy, I'll just emulate it. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I mean, as long as I can play the game, I'm happy. I like to look through my discs because, as weird as it sounds, I look at them as people would look at a trading card collection. I like to just sit and get one of my folders out occasionally and just flip through it and look at the box art, look at the disc art and stuff.
Yeah.
And I do like doing that, but my main concern, the whole reason I created this room that I'm sitting in, is because I want somewhere nice to just play games, and I want everything available to play at a drop of a hat. And I don't know, I'm not as fussed as people are about displaying stuff. I'm not looking down on people for doing that, and watching game room tours is what got me into this. What made me want to start a YouTube channel. People like CJR and Sick Cooper and Metal Jesus, just watching them, like their displays and stuff. I was like, I can do that, and I'd love to do that. But I always call it a functional game room, and that's how I want it. I want to be able to just come in here and play some games, and it's not. I said a while back, one of my first little accidental slogans I made up is, I'm not building a museum, I'm building a library.
Yeah.
And, I just like to be able to just come in, play a game, and it doesn't matter to me if it's pristine or not. And it doesn't matter to me if it costs 250 quid. Like, so a lot of people seem to think that the more you spend, the better. For me, it's the less I spend, the better.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think it's more difficult to spend less now than it was, but that's the way times have changed, and people's interest in this is a little bit different, and I don't think those days will come back anytime soon. No. But I like what you said there about you wanting everything in one place, and that's one of my issues is that if I want. If I want to get the ST out, the ST is buried right down the very, very back there. Okay, I'll have to move everything out of the way to get hold of it. And now I'm thinking, no, I want to be in a position where I can just go to this, like you've got in the background, and I will have eventually shelves up or areas. I think, there it's there. I'll just take it down off there and move it out, and then I'll put it away again afterwards. If I want to play on it for a bit, I'll take it out and put it away and do it that way. I don't leave things out if I can help it.
See, my problem was the laziness of that in that way. If it wasn't out and set up, I'd just take one look at it and think, I can't be bothered with that. So now I've got everything set up. I think there's only like 3 or 4 games in this room that I can't just play at a drop of a hat. And that's the way I like it.
Yeah.
It's like I've got a Spectrum game, which I've got off Dave Birdsall. I don't own a Spectrum. I've got 2 Acorn games, and my Acorn don't work. And I think that's pretty much it. They're the only games I can't just play.
Yeah, just will pick up and play them. Yeah, and again, I'm like you. I mean, I used to look and sitting in here, and just sitting in the middle of the room and just sort of sitting in my chair and looking around and getting a great deal of satisfaction for what was on the shelves, and just sort of looking and thinking, yeah, this is nice. This is nice.
Mm.
Okay, let's move on then to your final two choices. The end is in sight. We have what we rather clumsily used to refer to as the game that you take with you because you didn't play it enough, or you didn't get on with it, you'd like to try it again, or you played it for a certain time and then you got stuck, or you didn't get very far with it. We're now calling it the second chance game, a game that you played previously and you'd like to give it another chance because you're stuck on a desert island. Go on then.
It's sort of any game in a series is what I've picked because they're all interchangeable and I can't really choose between them. But it's any given Pokemon game that might be there.
Are you a Pokemon player? Are you an interest in Pokemon, or is this just a chance because?
Not particularly. No, it's just I used to watch the cartoon, but that's chiefly because it was on at the time when I'd come home from my girlfriend's house in the morning. So before we were married and before we'd moved in together, she'd go to work super early in the morning, and I'd sort of borrow my dad's car, drive to hers at night, spend the night, and then drive home at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'd sort of get home, switch the TV on, and go and get in bed and watch Pokemon. But game-wise, I mean, I bought that GameCube because I thought Pokemon Coliseum looked really good. But I've never really spent enough time with Pokemon. I've never had enough time to spend with it to sort of see the appeal that a lot of people see. And I can get why people love it. I've got a few of the games. I've just never really been able to devote the time necessary to do it. And it's not sort of instantly grabbed me enough to make me want to devote the time. So it's like, I've played through stuff like Fallout 3 a number of times, but that's because it instantly grabbed me. I love the world. I love the look of it, the aesthetic, and the music and everything. With Pokemon, I feel like I have to put in a bit of time before it will grab me. But I'm sure once I got there, it'd be fine, and I'd fall into it, and I'd love it, and I'd love finding other people who can trade with me and stuff like that. Over my time, I bought Pokemon Coliseum, but that's not really a real Pokemon game. I've bought Yellow and Gold on the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. I've got either White or Black on the DS. And then when I got my Switch, I bought Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, which actually made it into my top 10 games of the year that year. But that was after about 4 hours playing. I was really into it, and then I just stopped. So, I'd love to be able to get into these games. I'd love to be able to have the time to devote with nothing else better to take up my time.
Yeah.
But I've just never been in that position. And I'd like to see what the magic's about.
It'll be fighting for times.
They are time sinks.
With all the other ones, won't it?
It depends what time I'm there, how long I'm there for. I mean,
we'll just have to
Animal Crossing,
yeah, the Sims. I mean, you could be there for years playing that. Fallout 3, Stardew Valley. Yeah, I mean, it's fighting for time and space on that one. You might be one of the longest inhabitants on this island. In fact, if anything, we might have to do a prisoner and sort of drug you and then move you to a different island at some point
to make space for somebody else.
Yeah, somebody else can get on there. We'll put you on a second island. It'll be like Jurassic Park. We'll move you to the second island, and you could start all over with someone else. Yeah, a lot of people pick Pokemon on this. I know it's come up a few times for whatever reason, and I don't fault the choice, but for me, and I've not got Pokemon Yellow, and I've played it very, very briefly. I just can't. I watched the cartoon. I couldn't understand the cartoon. I tried playing the game. I couldn't really get on with the game. So, it's not going to be something that I'm going to be sort of doing. But a lot of people who've been on here already have said it's they want to take certain games with them, or they want to try it again. A couple of people have mentioned they don't like it, which is fine, because I'm not trying to remember who said it was the last one. Oh, yeah, Cooper's World. He put that on. He's absolutely hated Pokemon games, but that's that's a concept of it. I think Martin put a couple of the games in that UK game. I think he put them in. He put Pokemon Ruby in, one of his favourite games. So it's one of those. It splits people down the middle. Not for me. I can live without Pokemon, to be honest with you. I watched somebody play. Might have been Colosseum, I don't know, or one of the N64 one. It wasn't Snap. It wasn't Snap. It was Colosseum. Stadium. That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I watched that video, and I was like,
Stadium's just the combat though. There's no actual role playing to it.
Yeah, but I just didn't get it. Yeah. I don't like those games, as people will know. So
well, I'm the same. I don't really get it, but I'd love to be able to. And I'd love to see what all the fuss is. And I do think if I had the time with no other distractions, I could fall into it, but I haven't got that time, and I have got those distractions.
Okay, then. So we've reached the end, and now we ask you to regale us with tales of the game that has mistakenly somehow washed up on the shore next to you with all this other good stuff, and this chance to play Pokemon has now washed up, and you think, oh, what the hell's that come here? Where'd that come from? And again, at some point you're gonna have to play it, because one of the rules is that you have to play it at some point. Yeah. You can't come off the island until you've played it. I've never heard of this one.
No, I don't think a lot of people will have. It's a very, very sore subject for me, because I'll say what it is. It's on the PS4. It's called Grey Skies, A War of the Worlds story, and it came out last year. And it's an indie game with lofty ideals, lofty heights, and it's a sore subject for me because War of the Worlds is my favourite story of all time. I love the book. I love the 50s film. I love the musical. I even love the Tom Cruise one.
Someone's got to, Pete.
I've got a little shrine to it on one of my shelves behind. I've got the vinyl for the musical and stuff like that, the Jeff Wayne one. It's just my favourite story of all time. I've read it God knows how many times. I've watched all kinds of different versions of it. The same year that the Tom Cruise one came out, another 3 different versions also came out on DVD, straight to DVD movies.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I've seen one of those, and it is god awful. But it's War of the Worlds on a whole. It's just something I've always loved, and I just love the whole, even the story behind it about the radio play and people thinking it was real, and the world going into panic and stuff like that. It's just such a concept that's always resonated with me, and I love it's just my favorite piece of media ever. And so I heard this game was coming out on the PS4, this Grey Skies, A War of the Worlds story, which is sort of, it's not following the story of the book. I mean, it's set in present times, but it's not following from every time you get a new adaptation of it, it's always following from the story, like the perspective of the man, who's always loosely the same character and goes through the same story beats. This time you're playing as a woman, and it's just a completely new story, but it just happens to be taking place during the time of the Martian invasion. And it's set in the UK, and it's set in a town called Castleton, which is quite close to where I live, and I've been there a few times. And so that captured my imagination a bit as well. It's like, I used to go on school trips there and stuff. There's the Blue John Caves. There's a cave called the Devil's Arsehole. And you can visit these areas in the game, and it really captivated me. In fact, actually, while I was playing it early on in the game, do you ever see the sitcom Black Books?
No, I didn't.
Oh, it was the same guys who made Father Ted and stuff. They had Dylan Moran and Bill Bailey in it, and they ran a bookshop. But I actually found the bookshop from that series as well, just on one of the streets, and I was like, that's a really cool Easter egg, and really, it seemed like it was going to be good. But I will give it sort of a pass a little bit because it's an indie game, and it was made by a very small team, and it's trying to be The Last of Us, which was obviously one of the biggest high budget games on the PS3 and 4, and one of the best games of all time, in my opinion. But it's just so buggy and glitchy, and the way how you move is, the only way I can describe it is erratic. It's like the slightest touch of the analog stick and you'll fly off in some kind of direction. Stealth-based gameplay with really poor AI doesn't work. The enemies are like weirdly shoehorned in mind-controlled humans, so they're like zombies. Because obviously they couldn't put the aliens in as enemies because they drop dead after breathing the Earth's air and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they just shoehorn this whole thing about with like mind control zombies in there and stuff, and you can't fight them, you have to hide from them, which has been implemented well in other games, but not this. And I just ended up, I've got a couple of hours into it after being like really interested and looking forward to this game, and I just couldn't play it anymore. And that rarely happens with me. I have to, I can quite often sit through a terrible game and see the ending.
Yeah.
So I always try and find like the good parts of it. But no, it was just, it's made by a small team, and I almost chose Daymare 1998, which was like a Resident Evil style shooter as well, Resident Evil style survival horror made by an indie team as well on the PS4 for the same reasons. They're both indie games, and you have to give them a pass for that because they're made by a small team. But at the end of the day, a bad game is a bad game, and if it's terrible, it's terrible. It doesn't matter how many people made it. It's like, at the risk of sounding crude, my dog could have a crap on the garden, and the Queen could have a crap on my garden, and you look at them both, and they're both crap.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who made them.
That's a very good analogy for that. I agree. I'm like you. I think any game deserves to be played. Yeah, even if the reputation is not good, I think you've still got to play it to see what it's like. And usually, 8 or 9 times out of 10, you agree with the fact that it is rubbish. Occasionally, a game will surprise you and actually think, well, actually, it's not that bad. It's not good, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. This, though, I'm not sure this sounds in the spirit of what the original source material is. However, it's trying to be a sequel to that, isn't it? So it's not trying to be the War of the Worlds. It's trying to be a storyline from the War of the Worlds. Yeah. It sounds.
Sorry.
I was going to say it sounds very, very similar to a current show which is running, which I think is American-French co-production.
Yeah, I've not actually, the one that's on Disney Plus. I've not actually watched that yet.
Yeah, because Mrs. Bears watches it. It's not bad, but it's the same sort of thing. It's rather than having aliens in there, you got people who were sort of controlled by them. Or I've not really watched much of it, to be honest with you, because I watched did you see the BBC adaptation last year? The original.
That was no good.
It was very strange. It was a very strange adaptation.
If it had just told the story as it was supposed to, I would have properly enjoyed it. I think it was the flash forward bits where they were sort of going forward to the post-apocalyptic, like a few years later storyline, and the kind of shoehorn political stories that they were throwing into it and everything like that, and they were the bits that I didn't like. The bits that they copied straight from the book were really well done.
But when it stayed true to the original source, it was good.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of jumping
around. But they tried
to
shoehorn the like infidelity bit around about it and stuff like that, about him leaving his wife for a younger woman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know it was like a taboo at the time, but it didn't really have a place in the story. No. But this game, there's like bits in the trailer where there's like bits where you're being chased by a tripod and it's like firing at you and stuff, and things are exploding all over the place, and that looked genuinely good and genuinely sort of tense and stuff, but I never actually got that far. But given time on a desert island where I've got that with me and I've got more time to play it and no excuse, I would have loved to have been forced to give it another go, but
Mm.
I don't know, because it was something that was so close to my heart and something I've been looking forward to, and I ended up really hating it.
The crushing disappointment of it. Now that you said that bit about being chased about the the alien tripod, the new rule is you ain't coming off that desert island until you got that far. So you're going to be stuck down there playing that until you. So forget everything else that's gone before until you get to that point in the game. You ain't coming off that. You ain't coming off island number 2. So there we go.
Best get comfy then.
It might be some time. Well, there we go. We've reached the end of your desert island games, Pete. And again, I always say it's a fascinating choice, isn't it? I appreciate your passion for why you've chosen these games, and I hope some people have found it as fascinating as me, especially about the stuff about the Sims and the wrestling, the Fire Pro wrestling game as well. The whole Animal Crossing thing about through lockdown, which a lot of people experienced, and the stories about you and your wife getting, your girlfriend, and then your wife getting together, playing games, sharing that hobby together. It's been absolutely brilliant. It really has been. And again, your gaming history with the stories from that has been absolutely fascinating to listen to. It's always great to hear how people get to where they are now.
Yeah,
not so much because you're doing a YouTube channel, but where you are in life, whether you your age, my age, older, younger, whatever, you all get to the same point or this point or wherever in a different fashion. So it's always interesting to hear how people do that. And a lot of people are quite similar. I mean, you mentioned the stuff about your mum clearing your stuff out and throwing it away. As I said to you before, I've had people on here already. I'm one who's had that problem. I know Phoebe Chicken had the same problem as well. So people can always tell those stories about things being thrown out and moved on without knowledge or whatever. So it's been brilliant. But and Eek the Cat as well. I never thought we'd mention Eek the Cat on one of these. That's great. I'm now going to go and try and find some Eek the Cat stuff on YouTube, and then realise it was actually terrible. Come by, yeah. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it as well. That's the main thing.
I really have. This is the reason why I started a YouTube channel, is because I just wanted to talk games at people and I had no one to talk at. Not talk to, just talk at. And this has been 3 years of YouTube culminating to this point.
And you said before, and as everybody else said, I'm not quite sure how long we're going to go on for, and have I got enough to talk about, and whatever. And then everybody everyone looks at the clock in the top corner and go, "Have I really been talking for that long?" And honestly,
my voice has actually started getting hoarse. It's
that's it. Yeah. I must be honest with you, because it is just gone past 11 o'clock when we're recording this of an evening, so it is quite late into the night as well, coming to the end of a long day. But no, it's been absolutely superb, mate. I know we trialled this on the podcast originally, the TMV podcast, and to have you come and do this now fully, and it is absolutely fantastic. So my ever eternal thanks to you for coming on doing this, and
that's been my pleasure.
No, I've really enjoyed it. And again, we've known each other for quite some time. We're probably one of the people I've known for longest on YouTube. And there's stuff here I haven't heard about before that I didn't even know about you. So I've learned a bit tonight. And I expect people listening to what you said so far, who are aware of your channel, or may not be aware of your channel, have also learned a lot about you as well. And that's the idea behind it, to try and then show that off. It's not just whoever's in front of the camera, it's the person behind that as such. So it's been,
well, thank you for having me.
No, it's been an absolute delight, mate, and hope everybody enjoyed listening to that. Don't forget as well, so everybody's listening to this, however you're listening to it or you're watching it or whatever, link to Pete's channel in the description below. Go across and have a look at his channel. It's one of my good friends, and deserves your support. So if you haven't heard of Pete before, do go across and see what he's all about. And love to hear what you hear about this episode. If you haven't enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave us a comment below as well. Some great comments on this series so far, and the series will continue. Like I said in previous pickup videos I've done, we've probably got enough people lined up if I can do this without hitting exhaustion levels, because it's very draining to do. Each one of these is turning out to be 3 hours long with everybody. It's a long time to take out, but I I've probably certainly got enough people running into December and January for this. But if you are interested in coming on, want to go on the waiting list, my email address will be in the thing below. Leave me a comment and I'll come back to you and see if I can give you a date at some point in the future. Open to everybody, honestly. It's anybody who wants to come and talk about their gaming history, it'll be great to do it. All that reminds me to say is, if you have enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Tick the notification bell to get more notification when they go up. Don't forget Desert Island Games goes up every Saturday at the moment. New episode every week. Which reminds me to say once more, Pete, thank you again very much indeed for being a guest on Desert Island Games.
It has been my pleasure.
That's brilliant. And this is the Retro Bear saying thank you very much indeed to everybody for listening. And I will speak to you again very, very soon. But until then, do take care and bye for now.